You've never heard Jeepers? You've never heard the Jeepers Blast?
No, only in cartoons.
Oh man, no, it's Jeepers and OGs and what was the one I was doing? It was I'm trying to like not say you guys as much. It's been a really bad habit to break, so I'm saying folks a
Yeah,
lot more and I say y'all a lot. But
that Domus does. Yeah, I would say I hear that a lot from Domus.
what's that?
Y'all and yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like it doesn't offend me not to say you guys, and it might offend
Uh-huh.
one person ever. So like it's really
Yeah,
no skin off my back to try to be a slightly better person. But
yeah.
like what's happened is I've tried to not swear and tried to change my vernacular off of like some gendered terms or whatever. Like I've started to sound way more Midwest, and it's it gets horrible.
Are we live or are we
We
talking
are
about
live.
Vampire?
We are live, but had to get that banter in there. All right.
Gotcha.
I can see kickers there. Good evening. All right, chat gang. I got this Scott this whiskey here, the Suntory whiskey, Toki as it's called. We are celebrating the fact that we did it, chat gang. We conjured vampires into existence with our sheer will. It had nothing to do with the pipeline. It wasn't like Games Workshop was already going to release them anyway. No, no, no. We did this, so we deserve an episode all about. Wait, Martin, why are you here?
Hello, friends. We're here to talk about elves.
Oh, oh, sorry, I got carried away with my excitement. We're here to talk about elves tonight, everybody. Maybe some
Yes.
vampires. This is, of course, episode 82 of AOS RantCast. I'm your host, the magical Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar, and I'm joined tonight by formerly Stormcast Good Painter Man, now the lore master of all things Lumineth Realm-lords, Martin Orlando. How's it going tonight, man?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And thank you for having me, Andrew. Am I supposed to only call you Mr. Mephisto on the show?
Oh man, now they know my real name's Andrew. No, it doesn't
That's...
matter, man. For posterity, let's go with Mephisto for the show. But
All right, Mr. Mephisto. You got it.
I see that's actually really funny that you asked me that. I have real people in reality who have known me for decades that have started calling me Meph or Mephisto IRL. It's like Andrew
Gotcha.
is evaporating. There is only Dad and Meph. And like Andrew,
Gotcha.
like I'm not like having an identity crisis because Mephisto is the monster I've created, and so it's just like it's almost like uh if this were the Invisibles by oh my gosh, Grant Morrison, it would almost be like I am constructing my like chaos reality of myself, and so I can't even be mad
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
But
Totally get that.
SJ Arcades here, Kickers here, Grim Slacker all up in the house, Takeover Mars, and the Caravan. How's it going, Chat Gang? Takeover Mars dropping 1,000 RTP to remind everyone that Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with right out the gates. So, how do you want to do this, Mark? Do we want to talk about the quick teasers real quick before we talk about some of your experience with LRL in this whole
Oh,
last
for
year?
sure. Oh, for sure. Like now is the perfect opportunity to talk about that because I believe we had a nice, interesting conversation on Twitter once the shock died down and we saw some proper pictures of those Huracan Wind Riders. I won't be able to see your screen, but I mean I have them here and everything like that. I did not have an opportunity yet to watch your vampire show where you understandably gush about some of the better vampire sculpts probably on the market to just come out in the past few decades.
Yeah,
Um,
I was actually just before dinner I was making a meme of the vampire sculpt with the bat hair, and like on the other side then the newer the warbands one. Who is my new waifu, by the way? I want you all to know that. She is my queen. I will serve her faithfully. But no, I was gonna do the meme is just like if you can't handle me at my, you don't deserve me at my, and just like
yeah,
hair game. Like it's
yeah, oh,
I
yeah.
I actually I get some people criticizing the bat hair thing. I'm like, no, no,
No,
this isn't even a deal breaker. This is awesome.
I will say there's something to be said about them over rendering. I think particle physics and like things like smoke, vapor, flames, because you're rendering a gas as hard plastic shapes.
Yeah.
I think that that also a little bit applies to like
Hair.
there's nothing. Yeah, there's not. Well, it's not the hair. I think they're using the hair to hold the bats up.
Hmm.
And that's it. There's nothing innately wrong with having hair that long and that wild. It's just that they also wanted the bats to be like flying around them in a truly cinematic fashion. And because they don't want to put them on flying stands, because flying stands just kind of look
Garbo.
ugly, and
Yeah.
like yeah, last decade,
They really
it's like, well,
take
how do
you.
we?
They take you out of it. Like I really like that they moved in the direction where they have things like kind of like using the like rock to show that it's like
Yeah.
holding up by the tail or
Or
the cape or
and I'm guilty of this too. If you remember my Deathless Clans army with the Viking vampires, my unit of Blood Knights, I bought the Beast Claw, sorry, not Beast Claw, Beasts of Chaos Endless Spell Pack, and I the Flock of Ravens, and I pinned the Flock of Ravens to be flying with the banner bearer for the Blood Knights. So it's this completely gratuitous, like to create that same effect. Like you want that flock of bats or flock of ravens
yeah.
to just create this extra cloud of noise that adds to the impact, the silhouette
It's,
of the unit or your general theme.
well, and that's the thing is like I think it cuts like a. I think that's one thing that we are even the detractors from the hair, and it's such an easy fix. This is less than a head swap. I don't even have to buy a separate
Yeah.
head. You can just clip it off. Like I did a live. One thing you didn't see me do in that show is I did a live in real time in MS Paint, pulled it up, and just like took the
Yes.
bats off in real time. Like,
Uh,
but
well,
but
I
but the silhouette
yeah,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
is one of the things that they're not that we don't talk about, and I think it cuts just this great silhouette. It's got this like
Oh yes.
looming.
The bats should still be in that area of the model. They should just be suspended by possibly something else if it were up to me.
Well, that's fair.
Um, yeah, because I think the bats do look good there. Like as they're, I think they're a little small, but that's probably just so they could all fit on either one or two sprues that are going to be in that clam pack, or maybe just she's that big compared to what we would consider regular size bats. But my concern would be is that if they do something like that on whatever the centerpiece model is, um, now I don't know what the centerpiece model could look like. It could look like anything, but I it took me 8 weeks to paint Archon the Black, and that kind of broke me. There are certain miniatures where it's like it might be competitive to paint a version of this character again, or paint more than one, say Star Drake, but I will never do that because just painting them was just too arduous and so much detail. And I just have this image in my mind of a swarm of bats flying through another model, be it like the carcass of like a newer, bigger zombie dragon or something,
Oh man.
and it just adds that would look cool if you saw like art of that or rendered in a video game. That would be incredible. But having to paint all of that in pieces and then assemble it again and then transport it and then putz it around on the table for like a weekend or two, uh, I just feel like that it's
Well,
unnecessary.
well, that's. I mean, that's one thing I didn't get to touch on in that vampire episode. I was so busy just mostly gushing about one model and letting my imagination run wild. I didn't even really talk
Yeah.
about the existing vampire ranges that much.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing is, I really do want a new zombie dragon, like something. It
Okay.
doesn't need to be a zombie dragon specifically. It can be a blood dragon. It could be.
Yeah.
I want some new huge vampiric crazy,
Right.
hopefully a dragon because I'm a big
Oh
dragon
yeah.
fan.
Um, I'm sorry, everybody. This is the Elf Show. We're still talking about vampires. It's bleeding. The fandom is so strong. It's bleeding over into the other episode. And the guest is
Bleeding, bleeding.
yeah,
Ah.
yeah. There we go. Uh,
Well, no, I think there's a
yeah.
little bit of a dark mirror when it comes to vampires and elves. The lithe, unearthly, often like beautiful or haughty or cold or detached. Like there is some of that. It's just elves are
Maybe it is a dream matchup, but I think it's because you don't see it very often.
yeah.
Uh, uh, but it's mostly because it's like gothic horror is I don't think something you really see in like your truly traditional Lord of the Rings style
No.
settings, and pitting those two against each other is probably a truly Warhammer thing,
Yeah.
where like these clashing of these two armies with completely different graphic design cues. That could be a nice leeway head
Segue. Yeah.
back in yeah, segue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we can talk all about graphic design. Because I think there's discussion to be had about the graphic design choices of certain, I would say multiple armies, but definitely elves in particular. Uh,
Well,
but yeah, I'm excited to see what we have on Saturday. I hope you get what you want. I'm already in for what I want. Everyone walking away happy from a preview show
I
is
agree.
generally
Yeah, like
yeah
I'm going into it open. Like I had my expectations. I know a lot of people are like, this isn't quite pirate enough, and I'm like, I was always more leaning towards like I wanted like the AOSy high gothic. Like what is
yeah
AOS's high gothic? What is their like I
yeah.
can just imagine this shot in like in Shyish or even like more pointedly someplace like Akshi or elsewhere
Yeah.
where you just have this Castlevania type just insane
Oh yeah.
Mordheim like
The anime, the Castlevania anime. Granted, I don't know too much about the video games. I only played like one. I think the one
I
Castlevania
forgive
DS
you.
game.
I forgive you
Yeah.
this time.
Um.
It's like
And
my
so
favorite game
I just
series.
yeah.
But
It just shows you all of the opportunities that are out there for taking a traditional gothic horror sort of concept and then making it all about mythic fantasy.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but I do have one question for you because this is a predict a thing time. So Soulblight needs an infantry unit. They took ghouls out of the Halloween Superstore and made it its own army. So you can't have ghouls. Um, I was the one who came up with the Halloween Superstore because Legions in Agash, that was the thing where it's like it's the Halloween Superstore, the army. That's how you sell it to
But I
people.
love that. Like that's such a great
Yeah, oh,
selling
that's fine.
yeah,
It's
sales pitch.
fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Um, just because you're able to like uh, break an army down into like a nice catchphrase does not mean that you're diminishing like the intellectual property and graphic design that have been put into it.
The internet seems
Um,
to think that like they're super when they're super clever and like they distill things down to
yeah,
a single catchphrase that it is a dig and I'm just like you're
yeah,
saying it with the wrong inflection.
yeah.
Like real quick, you said you got a question for me, but I gotta acknowledge that Soren dropping in here, the Mad Lad gifting 5 gift subs. Enjoy those, all those emotes. Pop off with the chat gang emote. You of course do not have to sub to be part of chat gang, for
Yeah.
chat gang is all.
I
But
might just pull it up on Twitch on my phone so I can see the chat, because I can't see the chat while we're in our conversation thing
that's
unless
fair.
I'm not pressing a button that I'm supposed to.
Kickers, I want a floating castle terrain piece since I know now I
Here we go.
won't get a ghost pirate ship. I see.
Yeah.
I don't think the ghost pirate ship is out because
Now,
there's. Go ahead, Martin. You might have a take on this.
but Deep can have a ghost pirate ship, even though there's no one on it. Like I feel like um, the one
Have,
thing that Games Workshop loves to do more than anything else is make sure that no one army, except for the Imperium, looks like any other army. So since the Imperium is not an AOS, every army has to look so utterly different. So I don't see anything looking even remotely like a pirate ship
Interesting.
coming for.
But we've
Yeah,
seen some rumor engines where there's actually like looks like a literal sail and
yeah, that could be a different game. That could be a dragon. Could be Bellicor, a 200 millimeter base for all we know.
fair enough.
Yeah, that's just
And
that's my take. So, but anyway, here's what my question is: what is the vampire's infantry unit? Because we can't just have it like LON. It's its own battle tome now. Is
Stay
it
a while
zombies?
and
Is it
listen.
thralls? Like,
the
what do you think it's going to be?
I think see I'm thinking I'm leaning towards thralls personally. But I would love to see some sort of elite vampire like, you know, block of 5, block of 10 style like
Yeah,
a
well,
literal
then
go ahead.
no, no, I totally understand that. Where it's like we need a vampire, like a vampire knight infantry. But what do you do to them to make them look not like blood warriors?
I think you lean into the fact that they're more of a duelist style thing, or have them being like a. I want to see the metamorphosis aspect of vampire lore, folklore played up a little bit. So like actually have like a like shape shifting vampire style like elite
Yeah,
combat units, and you can get in some really cool like really take them in a different direction. You could do werewolves. Like you could honestly have like a pack of 5 werewolf style things or something like.
would you really want your werewolves as your infantry for their vampire
No, I
overlords? I
want
think
them.
that's
I want them elite smash bodyguard 400-point monsters that like are wrangled by the vampire overlords. You got to keep in mind that like the initial like vampire lore uh, wasn't utterly divorced from werewolves. That came later on.
yeah,
And
yeah. I just know like the I want to make a Team Edward, Team Jacob joke, but or what we do in the
But
shadows thing.
oh, so good, so good.
Yeah.
We throws the dog toy. Oh my god.
Yes.
Oh my god. Like
There we.
I need more. I finished the last season so long ago, and I need more. It's one of the best things. If you haven't
I know.
seen What We Do in the Shadows, the
It's on
TV
Hulu.
series specifically, it's on Hulu. Watch it. It's worth taking the free sub, the free 1 month to just watch the show. It is one of the greatest things. But it has ruined me for ever being too melodramatic with vampires ever again. Like I just
Yeah,
um
I totally get it.
Take Over Mars
Um,
dropping 5 gift subs. Thank you so much. And G Dad, remind everyone that chat gang ain't nothing to mess with. Yeah, so I think Thralls is a really good. I've been playing a lot of Blood Bowl lately, and like the play style with that Blood Bowl team with the vampires,
mhm.
and like they kind of need to end their movement next to their thralls, or they can frenzy and just try to eat somebody, or
Yeah.
they'll literally run off into the stands to try to eat a fan if there's nobody near them to eat. I want to see some gameplay where like vampire lords are like actively turning thralls or like feasting on
Oh yeah.
thralls on the table. I think that would be so metal.
Yeah. Uh, I know I really want to talk about elves, but I had this one more thing where I was in a group chat with the Caravan, good friend of friend of New Jersey clubs, uh, where we said it's like vampires need a familiar. A familiar can be any model. I'm sorry, any hero from any Grand Alliance. That I think it was we came up with this whole thing where it can't be a wizard and it can't be a named character, and it loses the ability to activate any command abilities, but gains the Soulblight Gravelord's keyword and the keyword for your relevant subfaction. And we were like, how can you break this? Because this is ultimately supposed to be like a narrative rule. It's like you can take a second Mega Gargant, and I'm like, sure, take 2 Mega Gargants in your Soulblight army. Go right ahead. That's fine. It's
Nice
fine.
1,000 points you have there. Yeah, like.
It's of not death models. It's fine.
Well, I think that actually like being able to take a familiar or like embrace somebody type thing would be a
Yeah.
super metal mechanic. That's something we haven't seen
Oh, yeah.
before, and I like
Yeah.
things I haven't seen before.
It's a cool way to just and that's why I said it's like it throws narrative players a bone. Like you could find a way to game it, I'm sure. Like we came up with like the Eidolon and an engine rigger because the engine rigger can take the spell in the bottle, I think, or something.
Mm.
And it's like, well, you could just take those. It's like doesn't matter. You can take like just watch all of the hobby from like the hobby intensive Soulblight players, and I have not met someone who is heavy into vampires at like these big GTs who isn't also an awesome hobbyist. And it's like you can take your Stormcast, your Dark Elf Lord, or whatever, and just make them make them like Guillermo or something like from What We Do in the Shadows. And
Carab-
it's like,
Caravan in chat here is I feel called out, and
yeah,
then Navigator because they can
because
half
they can
charge.
have charges.
Yeah, yeah. I like
Sure.
Guillermo. Oh man, I'm not even going to spoil it because I just recommended the show, and if you haven't seen it
Oh
yet,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
Guillermo's
yeah.
fantastic. I'm playing Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition right now. Like I just played
Hmm.
our first game session on Wednesday with G Dead and his friends, and the temptation to make Colin Robinson like was so high. Like
Yeah.
the social vampire, like oh my god, Colin Robinson is probably if it weren't for the fact that Laszlo is perhaps one of the single
The
greatest written
best
characters in all of
in
television,
television.
just
Yes.
all of television. Like we actually already had this conversation on Twitter. like like
Yes.
if it weren't for the fact that he's so well written, like fucking Jackie Daytona is
I know.
everybody's spirit animal. If it weren't
If
for
I
that,
could, if I could make him out of Games Workshop parts for you, I would. But trust me, I've already thought about it. I don't know if it's possible. There are a few Reaper models I can just repaint with a little bit of added stuff to make like Laszlo, but then
oh,
that's not quite
like
GW kosher.
like you have your I actually hope that this army's Hero Hammer. Not to go
All
too
right.
far. Like I don't if Hero Hammer is like, if 2 armies in of 30 are Hero Hammer armies, it's
Yeah.
not a big problem. Like that can be their shtick. Just like we can have the 40k space shooting army with KO as the exception. Like, it's fine to have those little things and that be their thing. When the whole game becomes Hero Hammer, I think that becomes
Right.
something
yeah.
that people dislike. A vampire's army almost feels like it deserves to be a Hero Hammer style army.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. A friend of mine, he the first AOS tournament he went to, he's been playing Warhammer almost as long as I've been alive. And when he first got into AOS, after is like, you know what, I'm finally gonna give AOS a try. It was Nagash of Vordry, 3 units of 10 zombies, a unit of 5 Black Knights, or was it Hex Wraiths? But still, it was like he went right to Nagash and Vordry. It's like that's it.
That was the first.
That's it.
Yeah, that was the first question I had to answer. This is why I have 4 zombie dragons. Because the first thing I wanted to do was run 2 vampire lords on zombie dragon, and then I'm like, but I also want to run Nagash, so I guess I have to only have 1 vampire lord on zombie dragon and Nagash. Like the first thing when Haywo got me into AOS, it was the first thing I wanted to do. Like it was like it's such a serious temptation.
We need a novel because he's
such a cool
not
character.
gotten enough screen.
He's such a cool character. He needs some screen time. Yeah. Real quick, Indigo Girls, thank you so much for that Twitch Prime sub. Thank you so very, very much. Welcome to the show. W. Soren, not to be outdone, dropping another 5 gift subs, going to a total of 271 gift subs in the channel. This is why he is the Mad Lad, and we love him so much. I hope you're doing great down there in Texas. Cheers, cheers, my friend. I'm cool with it being Hero Hammer.
You answered my question.
Did I? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I have some ideas, but it's like we'll find out because they're probably going to show off most of the army.
You had a story about a vampire though.
Oh yeah. I promise we will talk about elves, everyone. Oh, we're gonna get there.
Just
no. I've been hinting at this here and there. And this at some point, my mother is very shy, even though she loves the hobby, she loves supporting everything. People have seen my mother on Twitter, but she's very camera shy. So I would just need to get her on the record in a way that she would be comfortable with. My mother has been helping run conventions until she had me, like through like the late 70s, early 80s, back when there was like one Star Wars.
It's like she's the OG nerd, what I call the first guard, which is like the original Trekker and the original.
Yes, back when you could sell fan fiction at tables in dealers' rooms. Back when it was called a dealer's room instead of like the exhibition hall where and stuff like that.
You were in a magazine club and you were mailed a magazine from some college campus somewhere. And a
bunch of professional hobbyists just
that first. So I consider myself that probably us too. I think that this is a wide berth basically. If you're between 20 and 40, you're in that second guard. But that first guard, that like OG, like
So one of my mother's best friends was a name Alexander Marty Gear. Everyone just called him Marty. It's basically who I'm named after. Everyone also called him Big Bat because he was I want to say 6'7". And the spitting image of Christopher Lee is Dracula when he was in costume. His house was covered in Dracula memorabilia. Before it was called cosplay, it was called masquerading. He passed away.
I bet you that's why Vampire's called Vampire the Masquerade, because that would have come in after in the 80s. Counterculture.
Yeah. He had 6 sewing machines back when him and his wife were alive, because they would he was like the chief like judge of these grand masquerades at like Worldcon. Have you heard of Worldcon?
Yeah, it's Europe. It's the the big.
It rotates every country. It used to just be in America, and you can still go on YouTube and find videos from Worldcon from like 83, 84. If people ever want to know how old furries are, they've always been here. When they're doing furry stuff, it's like there's stuff for like, again, this stuff goes back decades and decades.
Yeah, shout outs to Christina and Jared over at Razor Tree Productions. We had the half furry episode out of nowhere, like.
And again, it's someone's fandom to everybody. Like I encourage also. I'm not looking down upon it. I'm just like, it's always been a thing.
Yeah.
Like, and so he was a big vampire guy. I used to go, like, my mother would go down to see him because he used to live in Maryland, and I started getting into Warhammer around that time, right when I was getting into high school. And he saw, vampire counts and stuff like that. And I said I would paint him a model and it was like Vlad von Karstein or something. And unfortunately, he passed away while I was in school, and I never got around to painting that model for him. So I am going to make a Vampire Lord version of him, complete with the half glasses, the convention lanyard, bad jokes, and everything. There is videos of him on YouTube, both as a memorial, but from him from conventions from the early 2010s. And he's notorious for his bad jokes. I don't have any of them on hand, but you can go Google them. Almost in all of his speeches, when he's doing the opening ceremonies for costume competitions, he usually throws in all these bad jokes, dressed as, again, Christopher. He looks like Christopher Lee's Dracula.
Amazing.
And so I may not. I may do more vampires as part of my Deathless Clans army, which was everyone remembers from like my
Yeah, it was
little
featured on.
Celtic.
It was featured on Warhammer Community site as
Yes,
the Celtic
yes,
vampires. Yeah,
uh,
you had it was a magma
yeah,
dragon as the base. It was a
yes.
blight, like a blight,
Blight Lord.
and a dwarf.
Yes, because that was the only one where it's like, I need a beard, like Brian Blessed's beard, like down to here. This was before Gotrek. I do still have Gotrek. I plan to turn him into a vampire lord on foot with that big hair and everything like that. Uh, and I may make some vampires for that, but really I need to make just one vampire lord like him. And hopefully I will try and tag Felicia Day. Felicia Day was a friend of my godfather's as well. It would be cool if she could see it. There were 4 different ceremonies for like the wake to like try and get as many people as possible. This was part of his will because it was like social media was like still becoming a thing at the time. And
Oh yeah,
there
I
was a
used to when I was I didn't think Twitter was going to take off. By the way, I
yeah,
remember that like to date myself a little bit. I'd be like, you can only type 120 characters. Do you know why,
yeah,
dear chat gang, why you could only type 120 characters? Because it was the text limit on your phone, and it was your phone actually texted Twitter to make the post.
yes, yes. Uh, so he said cosplay was encouraged at one of the main ceremonies, and that was really nice. And there was a big montage, and there was this one with him and Felicia Day were in a few photos, and I was like, oh yeah, and it would be really nice. Yeah, it was just a thing where it's like a few degrees separated from people who are actually famous. Uh, yeah. So it would be really nice just to like tell his story for people, get that out there, make a nice cool miniature.
That's actually
Um,
really awesome. Um, like,
Thank you.
no, it's
But
really
yeah,
awesome.
again,
That's
I have to see what the sprues look like and what kits I can make them out of and stuff like that. Just see it's like what would be the coolest looking vampire lord that would fit sort of his style. Because of course Christopher Lee's Dracula is just like in a suit and a cape. That's not exactly available out of Games Workshop plastic, so we're gonna have to try and compromise here.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and you try
but
to do
yeah,
all your conversions like straight out of GW plastic. So
for the most part, yeah. If I will say it's because of the Games Workshop Renaissance, and it's like if I have the ability one day to get the stuff in White Dwarf or play on the stream or in the, on the website, it's like it's an added challenge that just makes it a little better. Like if I really wanted to, this is back when Games Workshop was like from like 2012 to 2014, when people were like Games Workshop is just barely breaking even, kind of bobbing about. War Machine was taking off. And like things people were like discovering Kings of War and Malifaux.
Mage Knight was this. This would have been post Mage Knight because
Yeah,
Mage Knight had
yeah,
kind of went in the tank.
yeah. But it was more like just the sort of attitude out there was like anything goes in terms of miniatures, and that would be cool. But I think some of the most creative miniatures that you could incorporate into a Warhammer army out there tend to be one piece sculpts. Like most Reaper or Dark Sword is another good one where they make 28 millimeter true scale figures like Lord of the Rings scale, but they're mostly one cast, like one piece. And that doesn't leave you a lot of room to like really add your own character to them. You might as well just learn sculpting and try and make one yourself. So working with Games Workshop plastic, because there's so many different parts, I could grab a head here, a hair piece there, some shoulders from here. Like my Stone Mage, which I tried to make more like an Archmage. I made him out of Eldrad. I made him out of.
That
I
dick.
grabbed just. Yeah, sure.
No,
I
that's
don't
that's
really.
the that's the meme. Eldrad's a dick.
Okay,
Right. That's the
sure.
that's the joke.
He's also great parts. I took it from like the High Elf Dragon Lord, Wood Elf Blood Bowl team, the Zinch Magister, like the from Storm of Magic days. I'm trying to think of what else. And just like it just everything just allowed me to create this gestalt sort of unique hero, and I'm looking forward to doing that again with some of the Slanesh stuff. Uh, I know the joke because High Elves are secretly I'm sorry, Lumineth are secretly Slanesh, and me using Slanesh parts to make Lumineth characters.
Hmm.
Tom's conspiracy.
I
Uh,
don't think it's. I think it is their cycle, the whole like falling to Slanesh, but I think AOS being about more about hope than grim dark inevitability of the end times type thing. Or
well,
I think that
here's
they. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
can I poke a hole in that theory? If elves have the cycle of falling to Slanesh, why are all of the Slanesh mortals humans in the kits?
Touche. But what I was going to say is
Yeah,
that I think that this time around they've discovered their way of breaking the cycle by finding
yeah.
balance, because that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing.
Being
Like excess, like what's cool, the thing that's cool about Slanesh is I almost think of that I think it's the most human, because like too much of a good thing is a bad thing, or if you live your life pursuing only one thing excellently, a lot of other parts of your life are going to fall out of balance. Like pride, go before fall, right? Like the classic, like you just want to be the best at something, and at some point you go so out of balance that you'll step over anybody to become the best, right?
yeah,
And that is a very, and I think that what Lumineth Realm-lords are doing, and maybe this is our transition here, like
yeah.
what I think Lumineth Realm-lords are doing is like they're seeking balance. That's why like this very sort of like Tibetan sort of monk style,
Yeah.
incorporating the elements into their persona a lot more than
A,
just
lo-
like. Go ahead.
a lot of the animals I would say are from like that region that they're pulling from, like the Tibetan Himalayan region of. If you watch, there's a documentary series the Chinese government paid for in like 2006 for the Olympics. It's called Wild China. It's like 6 episodes. It's narrated by King Theoden. I'm sorry, Bernard Hill.
Theoden King.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
it's narrated by him. The third episode is about Tibet. It used to be on Netflix. I think it just the rights ran out. I think you can only get it like on Amazon or whatever. It's probably like $2 an episode or on Google or something. And you can just watch them. It's just HD footage of like all of these animals and the different areas of China. And the Tibet episode, first of all, Tibet is straight out of the mortal realms, like from how harsh it gets. Uh, like the different climates and biomes related to it. It gets like planet. There are parts of planet Earth where the ecosystem just gets crazy, and Steve Foot on
Yeah,
Twitter
it's
shares what's it calls like the
usually.
postcard from the realms.
Yeah. No, that's a
Yes,
great series. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
as you were saying.
He'll take a shot of like a volcano or like these weird bioluminescent mushroom sprawls, and like this is like Earth. Like
Yes.
this.
Oh
No,
yeah.
continue your point about the document.
Yeah.
I didn't realize much.
Well, yeah. Are the Huracan on screen now?
Yeah, I've got the five shot of them right now. The
Okay.
one, two, three, yep, five. The five shot. When we first saw the blurry Garbo photo, the potato
Yeah.
photo, um, reading them as kangaroo is you can.
It's perfectly like right. Well, because you read them from one side, the leg is up and almost out of view, and the coloration, as you said, it's very kangaroo. But it turns out it's a separate meme because I watched 5 minutes of Jurassic World and turned it off. Um,
A little more
but there's a scene from
Parasaurolophus.
yes, whatever it's called, and like they're sprinting along like ostriches. Uh,
Well, the
and I think it's a good time to have a question about uh, creature design because I don't think we're going in a thematically different direction from where High Elves were. The last time I was on your show, and thank you for having me, I had a mini presentation about trying to understand, well, where are the differences? Because texture-wise, composition-wise, the main troops of the army don't have really different textures. Like you have your cloth, your lamellar scale, your plate armor in certain places. Um, it it doesn't feel that thematically different.
The
But what we
only
have done,
battle tome I
yeah,
physically own for an army I will never possess because I never want to play Lumineth Realm-lords is for LRL, and it is 100% because of that episode that you were on. And this cover art
yeah,
is one of the best
excellent,
I have
yeah,
ever seen, and you argue it so thoroughly that I'm like, it will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine. So
there
I
we
bought
go.
my buddy. He already bought himself a an LRL box, and I'm
It's
like,
it's
I'm gonna buy you an LRL box for your birthday, but can I have the Battletome and dice? And he's like, yeah.
yeah, it's yeah. I mean, just to touch on that, it's not Paul Dayton. We're not talking about God tier here. Um, I mean, Paul Dayton did do the techless, like the art that protects the
The
sprue
great
in
one
the
where he's
LR
like
box.
the flying in,
That's
yeah.
that's techless. That's Paul Dayton. But anyway, it's so we come to the fact that, well, what are the sticking problems? And it's I agree with you when you were talking to Joe on the last show. I'm sorry, on your show, your recap of 2020, where it's like, I think there are people that will just always dislike elves, and I totally, I mean, I don't quite understand that. Where it's like, I get it for dwarf players because elves, dwarves, like
It's
if
a
you love dwarves,
fake rivalry. It's
yeah,
fun. This stuff is fun. Okay, like me fake
right,
hating Sigmar, and like I'll just always fake hate Sigmar. You know, and I say
or,
fake
or
hate not that I'm like
yeah.
faking it when I have my hot takes about how much I dislike Sigmar. I'm saying fake as in it's a world that doesn't matter, and hating real
Mhm.
people is way more of an issue than like hating a pretend made up
Oh yeah,
thing.
well, yeah. No, I when I say people who love dwarves don't like elves, it's more if you connect with the ethos and the design style of dwarves, like where everything is geometric. I'm trying to make a YouTube video on like graphic design and like how I created the aesthetic for my LRL by the end of the year. And one of the things I talk about is like using the Lord of the Rings sort of behind the scenes like compendium, like that 12 hours of documentaries. And they talk about the graphic design that they for every race that appears in the trilogy. And they talk about like the elves versus the dwarves. Everything is geometric and crystalline. Everything feels like there cannot be any curves anywhere on any of their shapes, from their armor to their like down to the belt buckles, their caverns, the architecture and stuff like that, even to their weapons. And it's almost the opposite for the elves. So I can understand why, if you jive with that graphical style from like a fantasy slash art perspective, the exact opposite of that, which would technically be like the high of the woodland elves, I can understand where that's just not going to mesh.
Yeah. Yeah,
But for yeah,
just
go on.
real quick here. Rocco, your boy, dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone checking ain't nothing to mess with, and Soren redeeming 100 RDP to highlight his comment saying,
Yeah,
"I really like the way the models look. I broke 3, and I am not very steady at times, and GW stuff is just getting more and more fragile."
yeah, it's getting bigger, it's getting fancier dioramas, and we were talking about
Thank you,
bats, like
Catacross.
yeah.
Like,
And like the bats, just like, oh, I now have to hold my model like with like the cupped hand. Yeah,
well,
hey,
I
that's why the glory of game mats. Just
slide them.
push.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and yeah. Well, and just since we ended up back on it, those
mm-hmm.
photos rarely show off depth. I bet you there's some depth to that hair when we
Yeah,
finally see that bat hair model in person. That's just gonna like sing. Because
yeah.
it. Anyway, continue your point on
Right. Well, so we get to the stickler for someone like Tom or other detractors. I only use Tom as an example because he has
He's a good friend. Like
a or a larger platform than most to, I would say, exemplify sort of the opinion where it's like, these aren't my high elves, and you have to ask, well, what makes them different if they're kind of thematically the same? And the answer is we're basically swapping out all of our companion animals, which were traditional Western fantasy mythical creatures, for a Himalayan West China zoo. And I get why that's jarring. It's jarring for me. And we don't have conventions like Warhammer Fest or the Open Days where we can go to the artists and ask why. So we're really left for ourselves to try and understand that. And I think the best way to look at it is there's before we get into the pulse thread, and it's like it could look like anything. This is, I would say, the main positive. They're not treating like the yak or the dinosaur sprinting creature any differently than they would treat the old creatures. High elves have found that balance by what do you say? They feel like they're living in the realms. They
Yes.
are one with the nature around them.
Well, I think that's a great selling point, and you can't tell right now, but I pulled up this fantastic image of the dwarf from from the Blood Bowl box, and you just got the like blowing the whistle 10-yard penalty for being an elf.
Oh yes,
like,
yeah.
like
I bought the elf on eBay out of that pack, so I
really,
can turn him into a mini me for like a turn counter and stuff. It's COVID, like I have time to be lavish and like make game tokens and painted Aether Court stuff, and yeah, so I have a victory point and command point tracker, and there'll be mini me, and the red card will be an army list or something.
that's amazing. I like that. I like that. Hey,
Uh,
coach, how's it going, my friend? I had to pull up that image. No, there's
yeah,
the people who just will never like elves or whatever. To be just this sort of, I'm sympathetic to people who never find their nine, but this goes to
yeah,
that twos and nines mentality of design, like
yeah,
not playing it safe, really trying to go for an aesthetic, going for it. And LRL are, I don't care what you say about them, they are going for it. They are
yes.
going for a strong emotional reaction. You're either going to love them or you're going to hate them. And
Yeah, I feel like I'm coming to it from a unique perspective because I was thinking about once I finished uh, the Legions of Nagash army. I was like the only thing I had an idea for making the Legions of Nagash army for almost 2 years. Like it was January 2017. I went to LVO, and after that I saw like a cool vampires army, and it was like unrelated. It was like, what if I made Manfred look like the dad from How to Train Your Dragon? What would that look like? And I sketched it, and I just put it away for like almost two
you
years.
you showed me some of those like
Yeah,
some of the early sketches, I think, or at least I've seen
yeah,
them. I don't know how because I
yeah,
remember the eyes like kind of like glossed out, and I remember seeing that
yeah.
sketch.
It was like something weird. And so I finally made that army. And it was just like, well, I've now made everything I want to make. I made a cities army before cities existed. I made Stormcast because Stormcast are awesome. Everything I wanted about Space Marines, minus the dumb stuff in the same setting as Teclis and Manfred, sold. And then I made like the weird, like outside of my comfort zone army, which was the Viking vampires. It's
Yeah.
like the only thing left is just wait for elves, and I was like mentally preparing myself. It's like, well, what if elves never come? Well, what does that look like? But like, I had the feeling they were when Teclis made a cameo in Forbidden Power. But that's still like summer 2019.
The
So I was
Teclis
thinking,
cameo you're talking referring to is the one where he's like, "Can I send in my boys?" and Sigmar's like,
yeah,
"Not yet,"
right.
type thing.
Yeah, that was when I switched from Games Workshop's no longer doing high elves because it felt like they weren't. Like they were slowly cutting them out of the range. In Cities of Sigmar, they got rid of all but like two high elves kits, like the Phoenix Guard. They got rid of the Island of Blood stuff. Um, and like elsewhere in fantasy, not having high elves in your setting is the cool thing to do. Like even in the stuff I love, like personally, like Dragon Age, it's like it's cool not to have high elves.
Game of
Um,
Thrones has
yeah,
poisoned
and
people.
Game of Thrones,
Has
and
poisoned people. They want magic and dragons. They just want humans and dark, grim,
well,
dark, fatalistic nihilism
I I
fantasy.
don't. Yeah, but I don't dislike that entirely either. I understand, especially some of my favorite books are
The blade itself does it
dramatic,
really well.
or like dramatic histories. Like my favorite novel is technically nonfiction. It's just told almost like an epic fantasy novel. So I totally understand where people are coming from when they want more Game of Thrones style content. But so that's rewinding a little bit too far. So I still had like 6 or 7 months of thinking about, well, what would I want my elf army to look like now that I'm a much better hobbyist. I'm much further removed from where I was when I first painted my high elves, like when I was in college. What would that look like? I guess it would be a cities army or something. And then we had the teaser in January, and then I had all that time to really think up this whole almost this whole Bible of how my elves are going to be my thing. It is going to be uh, personification of what I value in art, but also true to the lore in a way that sets them apart, but without disrupting canon.
Well, and
And so,
you had a piece commissioned, as I recall, like or a friend.
more than one now,
Yeah.
but not everyone.
To
Not everyone's seen everything. There's going to be quite a presentation at Adepticon 2022. Hopefully, Du
I
Bois.
hope you have the classic like I hope you have board backdrops to your display board that are your commissioned art pieces, and they're just up, and then and you have little bios like laminated that you pull out of a little slot on the back of the art.
Um,
No,
I don't mean to puff this up, but you got to think a little bigger than that.
I gotta think bigger than that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
See, there we go. See, my trying to not swear as much. My
Yeah.
Midwest oh my gosh, I did the classic Midwest like oh my gosh drop.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Um,
gee whiz there. We're just gonna have to go watch that Packer game now.
yeah.
Real quick, AOS coach said, "I feel the pain of high elf players, and
Yeah.
uh, when the Empire gets remade and I didn't get cities, I might feel the same too." And that's the thing is
Yeah.
like some people do want that class, not my elves take, right? Like they want
Yeah.
that. I just went through this earlier on in the week where I was kind of defending the. I don't even like looking at them now. I don't even think they're super kangaroo. Like I really see a lot more because the like super longer arms.
Yeah. No.
These are not hopping. They are sprinting, and they have the really really long whippy tail to counterbalance and like
Yeah.
whip out behind.
They are. I don't want to take you off tangent there. No, I was about to say they Lumineth are unique, I think, in how we are rebooting certain armies. In that High Elves had an incredibly diverse miniatures range from the beginning, and it seems like we're getting spiritual successors to each of the old High Elf units. There was a fast cavalry unit called the Lyrian Reavers. I don't know if you were like into Warhammer enough to remember what those were. If you've played Total War Warhammer 2, you would have seen
All
them.
I know is my friend Sam played High Elves, and I had the certain units I hated, and I tried to kill them more than the other units. Because you got to
Yeah.
keep in mind when I started playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle, I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was in the 6th grade. Um,
Yeah.
like I've played like people in AOS who were my age when I first started like Warhammer, and I'm like, you're going to be a literal phenom. The shit I didn't understand at that age that you have a grasp of in these rules right now blows my mind. I'm looking forward to this next generation of gamer. I think they're going to be stellar.
Yeah.
But no, like the names have never stuck with me
Yeah.
from other people's armies from that time period.
It's easy to guess what they are, like when we see these new units or how they're supposed to perform. When I say this is our fast cavalry unit, it's because there's nothing else it could be, which is why I say, and much to the lamentation of some older High Elf fans, the Alarith Stone Guard, our cowheads with the hammers,
Those
are
White
the
Lions.
yes, they are the successors to White Lions, and people ask us that they can't be. It's like there's nothing else they can be, and every other unit that isn't a character is a successor to. Even my friendly local game store, the guy who's been playing Warhammer since the '90s, and he's like game clubs. He's sponsored like giant events at games days and stuff like that. It's like the more things change, the more things stay the same because I'm selling you spearmen, archers, and silver helms. They can call them whatever they want. They're still this like even to a veteran, like not having watched any of the marketing or anything. It's like these are spearmen, archers, silver helms, and because these aren't sword masters, these aren't Phoenix Guard, they're White Lions. But we have to have some addition in there. So we have the Mountain Spirit. I don't mind the Mountain Spirit, like in terms of like it fits like that Tree Lord slot. It's a heavy walker. We never really had something like that in old days. We went from like having Great Eagles up to the Prince on Dragon, and no one really took the Prince on Dragon because of how the 8th edition worked. It feels part knight, part animal, and part like it has the animal features like like the yak, the Tibetan yak, because it's not a cow. Like it has like all of the shaggy hair that's like falling out of the armor. You have that nice knightly aesthetic, and then you have
This
like the
super
personification.
awesome like crystalline structure like coming out of
Yes,
its back. Yeah, it's really
I like
really
that.
cool silhouette on that thing too.
Uh,
Like
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We have if we want to introduce new unit types and how they perform, like as an army, I'm all for something like that. I'm not sure what the fox like. Presumably, it's a fox spirit that we're getting on Saturday because there's a fox banner on the Huracan,
Yep.
uh, and in the lore it hints at like a fox spirit. And I think on Monday we saw like this spiraling. There we go again. Hard plastic particle effects, like a cyclone. It's probably gonna look like something out of Naruto. It is what it is.
This is the first time I've heard you sound a little down on one of the sculpts. Because
it's
go on, go on.
yeah. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's more that whenever I build my armies, I want to take them everywhere, and so everything has to fit into one figure case, so I can fit it on an airplane. The worst thing for me in OBR is that the catapult is the size of an Imperial Knight. I don't want a bolt thrower the size of an Imperial Knight, thank you. I'm already breaking my figure case just to have Avalanor in it.
I like Indigo Girl's take here. I wish the mountain had a
Larger
larger
base.
base, looks majestic in pictures, but fairly shrimpy on the table. This
Yeah,
is
yeah, I can get that.
this is a sadness I have for many of the new sculpts coming out. Like I've got my Gothazar Harvester sitting right here,
Yeah,
waiting to be primed. It's Wisconsin, so I got to wait for like a decent day. I'm still in the rattle can. This is not huge enough. I see.
yeah.
There is a. Do I have like? Speaking of, I've got a Martin Orlando model right here. Like, this is not huge enough. There is an art to put them on the same plane.
Yeah,
There is an art where there's a Gothazar Harvester, like,
yeah. It's like
just hulking, just
oh yeah.
huge, and there's like a
In
legion of Mortek in front of it.
in Avalanor's art, the only art where he appears in the entire Lumineth book, he's the size of Godzilla.
Yeah,
It's like, wait, what?
make
Yeah,
the monsters huger. I know that like
because
bigger base
he's
sizes
supposed
are
to.
kind of a liability, but like I don't care. Make them huge. Go on.
It's the spiritual personification of Mount Everest. It's supposed to be Godzilla, but plus like a little bit of Buddha in there, and I like that dichotomy. Um, and so we're also gonna get, of course, Goku Mage, Monkey King.
On the cloud, the flying cloud. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. You're getting the
yeah.
the monkey king. Yep.
Can we talk about the Lord Regent though? Because I really want to talk about the Lord Regent.
Yeah, so we'll switch over to the Lord. I just to finish off a take. I don't know if I got to it during the vampire episode, which is when these would have come out. Um, I don't read them as kangaroos anymore. I think it's fun. I think it's cool. I like the Australia sledging. I think that's going on, but I they, if you paint these things a non-natural color, I think it starts to bring out a different quality. Like I almost go.
Yeah.
Go
Do
ahead.
we want to do the creature? Do we want to read the creature thing now? Like the creature design thing?
In one minute, we'll switch.
Okay.
So my defense of these things is they're a little weird, but they're weird in the good
Yeah.
way, the way that squigs are. Squigs are weird. Like it's
Yes.
just people accept squigs as part of the canon of Warhammer because they've been around forever. But the first person who's like, I'm gonna go hopping around on this ball of teeth, they had to be like, huh? Like
Yeah.
and so like if you can imagine that same thought process 30 years later, come on now, like be a little bit
Yeah.
more. I'm not saying don't like the thing. I'm saying don't tell me that they didn't take risks like this with things that exist in Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
That's just
I
not.
think they.
Go ahead.
I think they could have taken a little bit more of a risk, but we'll
Sure.
save that for the creature design segment.
Sure.
Um,
And so now I've pulled up the Lord
oh
Regent.
man.
This this is a
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Yes.
This is the I think Vince called it the best model in the range.
Yeah.
The way I would say it is this is your Catacross, this is your Sigvald, this is your like not in terms of like a centerpiece. I mean in terms of the
Yeah.
high mark of what the sculpts in the army can be. Like
Yeah.
Catacross is the best model in that entire army. Sigvald, I think, will be, but I can say Keeper of Secrets for Slanesh now because that is a gorgeous model. This here, to me, sings like Lumineth Realm. This is what elves, in terms
Yeah.
of Lumineth Realm Lord interpretation, They were joking that it was going to be a combat camel, like when we saw just like the top
Oh
part.
yeah, we saw the named character variant of this kit. There's going to be a named character variant. It's like your Liege Cavalos and what's Xantos is his name.
Yeah, Xantos. Yeah, instead of
Yeah,
the
I think in the New Year's Day
the
thing because
Cavalos.
it's a different fur color. The reins are a little different, probably because whoever the character is sitting on the mount differently,
Yeah,
and it's a different shield.
like this
Yeah,
this character's riding in a freaking howdah atop of it. Like, look at this high backed chair. It's so.
yeah.
I think I think the speculation is there's going to be a spear instead of a sword, which I'm all for.
No, there was not speculate. I said it just needs a star lance, and
Oh, this is where you're going
yeah,
to tell me what a Star Lance is.
yeah,
Real quick before
yeah.
you go into your Star
Mhm,
Lance take,
yeah,
AOS coach spending 100 RDP to highlight Monkey Magic, because in all
yes,
caps, mind you, so I got to say it with more inflection. Monkey Magic. There we go. Lord's Region is one of the best LRL models. Just amazing. Take over Mars. I'm not saying Sigvald right. Well, excuse me. And Hobby Bear dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that
Sigvald the
Shaft.
Magnificent.
Oh, is that what it is?
I
Sigvald.
assume so.
Yeah. Sigvald.
Uh,
Yeah.
the
And
Magnificent.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then hey Hobby Bear dropping the 1,000 RDP, remind everyone checking, ain't nothing to mess with. And how did Blood Bowl go? How did that game go? You can continue now. You
Yeah.
bring your guitar.
So trip down memory lane for people who did not play Warhammer Fantasy Battles. At the very end, like during like the eighth edition into End Times era, there was if you picture Dawn Riders, we called them the Silverhelms bus. Because I actually had some critiques. You were talking about how to fix War Scrolls to account for base size and reach, and you guys proposed mechanics which were in 8th edition, which I think led to its downfall, which I thought was ironic.
Who's
Um,
who's who's us guys? What was
yeah,
the
I'm sorry, you and Joe,
mm.
where you were talking about 2 ranks can fight, extra ranks become a blade of wounds.
That was someone
Those
in chat.
oh
Someone in chat said that, and I don't like I don't like the just arbitrary. I don't.
yeah,
Haywall, I think, was more amendable to the idea. I don't like making it arbitrary. You fight in one rank, two ranks. I don't. I like
yeah,
reach. I want my thing is simplify fucking pylon, and
yeah.
things on 32 should probably, as a rule, start drifting towards a 2-inch reach. Just period.
Yeah.
And
So
that those are
everything
my
in
two takes. Gone.
everything in 8th edition had to be a minimum of 5 ranks, 5 models per rank. You could go up to like 10 or something, but it was like 5. And characters always had to go to the front, except for command models. So you would have high elf prince and a high elf noble on horse, and then your 3 command models. So if you put your wizard in that unit as well, the wizard would go into the second rank, which means no one could ever target the wizard, which was the height of fun. But anyway, you would give the prince a magic item, which gave him +3 strength, so he'd be hitting for strength 7 out of 10. It was like strength 1 to 10 back then, back when we had weapon skill, ballistic skill, as you remember. And then there was a weapon called the Star Lance, which was in every high elf book up until I guess this one. Hopefully in Broken Realms too, they bring it back. Though I have reason to believe it's probably not. And it was +3 strength, but only on the charge, and armor saves could not be taken against weapons the damage done by the Star Lance. But if you did not charge, you could not use that weapon at all. And it was a unique bit in the Dragon Lord kit. And it literally looks like the tip of the lance and the rest is broken up by a literal like beam of starlight. So it's almost like the weapon is not one solid piece, and that's the starlight is channeled into the head of the lance on the charge, and that model, how she has the sword up like this, is just begging for me to take that star lance bit,
And just
and
be
yes,
hoisting
and
it,
that'll work.
readying the
Yes,
charge. I mean, look at the motion. They're rearing, right? Like they're on
yes,
a turn. So you can imagine like that scene in one of the greatest movies of all time, A Knight's Tale, where William rounds like the thing with the lance up before he brings it down to like knock it essentially. Like it's that. To get it
yeah,
in the cradle, get it in the cradle, right? Like where you can imagine the rearing around with the lance about to bring it down for the charge. I think that's
Yeah,
just
that's
tying
that's what I would try and do that.
that
Yeah,
tying that your kit bash into the motion of this model is, I mean, the silhouette, the cape, the movement. This is a 10 out of 10. This is what 10 out of 10s look like. Even though like a little callback to the Phoenix up here with like the burb, you know, like
I think that helmet looks ridiculous.
you don't like the
It's
helmet.
not. I do not.
Interesting.
Um,
I actually see a little.
it's
I
just.
get a little samurai vibe with the how it's got the
Oh,
plumes coming up.
how about I put it this way? Because I'm looking at the all of the kits from the perspective of what I want my elves to look like. There's nothing wrong with the helmet. I think it's pretty cool, but I don't like it for what I want to do with my army at all.
Mm.
Um, so
Even
it's
the
kind of
helmet
like
has a tail. Like it's so
oh,
ridiculous.
all of the Dawn Rider ones have like
A
it's
plume.
it's almost like the Roman centurion plume, and then it tails off into a little literal horsetail. Like it's braided in the same way as
Amazing.
all of the
Amazing.
tail hair on
Um,
Dawn Riders is.
I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, continue though. Like
And that was about it. It was I hope she does like what a noble BSB used to do, like Battle Standard Bearer, like buff the stuff around her, Arya a little better, because I agree with Vince when Vince was talking about LRL on the show earlier this week when they were doing the previews. I guess it was yesterday. Wow.
it was during the daytime too, so I actually got.
Yes, that's why.
I
It's like it
watched.
felt like it was more than one day ago. I don't know if uh, Lumineth need that mobile hammer. They just need something to allow the existing units to not always play like the same reactive castle.
Well, you want to
Um,
set the point of it the way I would use Black Knights when I was rocking 80 skeletons. Set the point of attack somewhere so my skeletons could come in, and they just needed to distract you or set a speed bump so that I could dictate that engagements happen someplace, as opposed to
yeah,
react to engagements. And I
right. And just as a quick aside, because I did have uh, this was in reaction to what Haywo said on your show. Um, I think that they even though they're really cool to play, and I like the whole like layout of how they play with like the castle and like some scalpels which can reach out. I think they are oppressive in key ways. The castle they present to certain armies, combined with the ability to reach out, will turn off certain opponents. I can understand the logic that low wound count balances out the castle, but some armies have no way of doing damage to Lumineth if they are required to exclusively like to roll to hit and wound like normal plebs. Like if they're not like I'm just going to roll X on modified and do mortal wounds to you, or I don't have to roll to hit, or something that doesn't involve them being in combat. I'm thinking of like orcs or destruction armies in general. It's like I can make you -2 to hit, and I'm going to turn off one of your big units with the Cathalar. That's just not fun.
pardon me.
Uh,
Or destruction seems to in general kind of hate castle armies. Like it's just their it is their rock to scissors. Like a
yeah,
castle army, they just and this is something I've come around to recently because before I was like, you're gonna play 5 games at a tournament, so like it's okay to like have your hard counter sitting out there. But like if you only have your orc army and your friend only has their LRL army, every game you play is a bad game if you never go to a tournament. Like
yeah,
that can be a problem. I'm not I'm not completely averse to people having like an L. I'm just shifting off of the like people holding your hard L to having a
yeah.
chance.
Oh
And
yeah,
and so that's the soul searching. It took me one full calendar year of lockdown to realize it because most of the games people got to play were in a basement. I say basement setting, not meaning basement or
yeah.
derogatory,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but just a
The biggest
one-on-one.
tournament since lockdown, the biggest tournament I've gotten the opportunity to play in was 8 people, and that was last summer when the
Yeah,
cases were at their lowest point, basically for our area.
yeah, and
Um,
there was Garden Hammer was happening a little bit, like where it would be
yeah,
about like 8 people, maybe 10. Like,
I have played against Bone Reapers twice and beaten them both times. But I will say, if someone had more than one catapult, I would be in big trouble.
well, this is why I have 2 catapults and I haven't lost to LRL yet.
Yeah, maybe when we get to play, we'll find out.
Dude, like, I won't be playing in Adepticon when that ever starts back up next year because I'm
Mhm.
helping Brendan out running it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Midwest Meltdown, like
Or
NashCon,
whatever
whatever,
tournament
we
where
could
I can
grudge.
I
Yeah.
can just you and Joe, and we can just go like school me in the ways of all of the nerding that I didn't get to do in my childhood, understanding what EverQuest is. Like, oh yeah, when you were talking with Vince about Ultima Online and all of these MMOs, where it's like, I didn't really engage in computer games until I was in like like in middle school, and we're already talking like 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
So like anything from like WoW and before that, I just like I didn't it didn't even reach my brain.
See, WoW was the bookend to my MMO experience.
Right, but I'm
That's
talking
my
like
age.
EverQuest Ultima Online. I've never seen a single image of those. Yeah, that's
I'll put it this way: if someone describes Ultima Online to you, you start to imagine it a certain way, and then when you see actual screenshots of the game, you're like, "This isn't as majestic and sprawling, and it's so." There's a.
basic.
It's so basic. It is, but what was great about it was in the peripheral, the mechanics, the other
Yeah.
stuff. It, like, even EverQuest, like, it's such an empty looking world. When I went back and, like, Halo's been running it on his, like, Wednesdays, like his dad games, quote unquote, stream. Um, he like he's been running it. And I'm like, man, that world looks so much more empty than I remember it. It looks so much darker than I remember it. Because to me, I remember logging in and just, like, feeling like I was in this open. I was in Dragonlance at the time. I was like
Yes.
super into Dragonlance. I'm like, I'm in Dragonlance. I'm Raistlin. Um, and
Hmm.
I and
Yeah.
yeah. But, like, that
Uh,
episode was pretty cool. I think Vince did a great job of contextualizing it for people who didn't play in that era. He has
yeah.
a really good gift of shorthanding what I take 20 minutes to say
Yeah.
in a way that is really approachable for everybody. So that was a really good episode. I like that episode. If you not to shout out my own podcast, but if you haven't seen the one with me and Vince yet, go back. It's a really good one, I think.
It was really fun. Yeah.
Just
And then
watch the
I
first hour, and then you don't even need to listen to us talk about Slanesh.
and then after that, I gave him the schooling about how because he was talking about how he rigged the economy, not in Ultima Online or the Star Wars MMO, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him I did the same thing in Cyberpunk because I wasn't high enough level to do the painting glitch. So I just did the thing where I disassembled sodas and turned them into grenades, and then sold the grenades or disassembled the grenades into
I did.
ramping. Yeah,
I discovered day one that certain items I sold, I bought back cheaper, and so I had
yeah,
infinite money day one in Cyberpunk.
yeah.
I've refined it to find the item that sells for the most and goes back to 5
Yes,
now. But, like,
yeah,
it was a gun. I sold a gun on, like, accident, and then I went to buy it back, and I'm like, they're only selling it back. Like, I only have to buy it back for 5 eddies.
yeah.
Like, oh, I could just
Someone asked my
I
age.
press button, make $150. Click. Like, how much patience do you have, right?
Yeah, someone asked how old I am. I'm 27. But I lived a very sheltered nerd life. Not that my it's just I different upbringing. I went from, and this is just going to be short. I went from Star Wars to Kingdom Hearts to Fire Emblem to Warhammer, uh, and I kind of stuck with Warhammer because I had a choice of either getting more into Xbox and drawing with the drawing tablet, or just getting better at painting miniatures, and I chose painting miniatures.
Hmm.
Uh, and here I am now.
Yeah, but you've reincorporated some of the draft board back into your stuff these days now too, though.
Yeah, I guess so. But that's how I don't really know what, like, when people talk about like the D&D books, EverQuest. I have played a grand total of 3 D&D games ever, and 2 of them were by a truly reprehensible person as a GM. So I don't really count those. and then one of them was by a very dear friend of mine who was trying to run his own game store during Friday Night Magic and also be the GM of D&D. You can imagine how long that lasted.
Oh, but that's like a 2-hour session lasting 10 hours. Um,
Yeah, and he would just walk away because he has to, work the register and stuff like that. So I'm not really like I don't begrudge RPGs or anything. It's just I'm used to having a storytelling experience of well written video games and non D&D books.
well, see, this is
That's
something
about
I
yeah.
did talk about on the Halo show is tabletop RPGs are actually my you get Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. You don't realize that I was the forever GM stereotype my whole life.
Yeah,
Tabletop RPGs are like that's
yeah,
the top of my rung on my ladder. And then below that it's like video games are what I did because I couldn't always have 5 friends to run a game for, you know? So like I would
yeah,
like, "Oh, playing this Final Fantasy game on the NES is like D&D but by myself." So video games became a very solitary thing for me because it's like what I do. If I have 2 friends, I want to play Age of Sigmar. You know, if I have
yeah.
3 friends, I probably want to play a board game or a card game like Exploding Kittens or something like that. And if I can get like 2, 3, or 4 friends, I want to be running an RPG. Like
Yeah.
the problem now is like as I become an adult, it's so much easier to do all the other stuff. It's so much easier to play a board game or play Age of Sigmar, or like show up on the weekends and like throw a game together, or make an event out of it and go to a tournament than it is to persistently run a campaign every week for 4 adults who have children and jobs and crap come up because now this weekend their car broke down and so like they can't play your game because they have to go deal with the real life problem. And so it's like all I ever want to be doing is living in a fantasy world of
Yes.
narratives that we're all telling each
And
other.
and and telling stories. Yes,
Yeah,
writers make the best GMs.
it's all I want to be doing, but everything in my life stops me from doing it at all times, so I settle for other things. That said, I am not lying when I say the Age of Sigmar community is the best I've been around. Tabletop RPGs were my first. The drama in the TTRPG community for that weird wiggle period before Critical Role came out while Gamergate was going on was toxic. It was
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the we don't talk about like that dark period of
I can understand that.
of fourth edition. Basically, it happens right around fourth edition. We don't talk about that period in Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPGs. First of all, where RPGs are completely boiled down to there is only Dungeons and Dragons and there's nothing else. Out of the 90s RPG wars, because there's like a whole RPG wars that happened in the 90s. Everyone was making RPG. Every IP that sold at all was being turned into Buffy the Vampire Slayer RPG. Anything that existed as an IP that was remotely popular, they tried to make it into an RPG to compete.
So right before COVID, there was supposed to be a movie by A24 called The Green Knight. I don't know if you saw previews for
I
it.
saw a
Uh,
screenshot just today with the
yeah,
gentleman from oh my god
Newsroom and Slumdog Millionaire.
and I
Patel, right?
Zombie I think too, yeah, right.
No, that's Raul Kohli.
Oh,
No, Dev Patel, I think, is the actor's name.
okay, fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, and
I just
he plays.
microaggressed there, by the way. I do apologize. Go on.
It's fine. I mean, anyway, it's also an actor thing. Like, both my parents went to film school, and I'm just like, I don't say King Theoden, I say Bernard Hill. Uh, anyway, you can go to A24's online store and buy an RPG module for the Green Knight. This horror movie, this fantasy horror movie that hasn't come out yet, has a tie-in RPG module.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were saying that anybody can make one.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just the most bizarre thing. I mean, of course, because it's A24. People made The Witch, The Lighthouse. I know Vince has it. You'd have to ask him if like how good it is. But I still think it's just the novelty of that is just simply like hysterical. It's
Well,
because you're saying like everything's.
we've gone full circle now with the Dungeons and Dragons has shifted into popular culture now. It's Batman. It's Batman now. Uh, Batman hasn't been nerd since the 80s. I'm sorry. Batman was the minute the Burton flicks hit, heck, I'd posit the Adam West Batman series on television. Batman ceased to be niche nerdy. If you were, I remember there was this SWAT team reality TV show, probably on like the History Channel or something like that, or TLC, like one of those.
Or Spike. Spike.
Spike, yeah.
You gotta go lower on
Yeah,
the
it
quality
is Spike.
spectrum.
Okay, whatever it was, and like the one character's nickname was Batman because he always had zip ties on him, and he was a SWAT team member. And I'm just like, if cops are like talking about how Batman is like a nickname, I'm like, this isn't like it's not like they're calling him Elminster, like this is. Come on, like Batman
Yeah.
was mainstream for so long, and I'm not maligning that. That's the difference between me and some other nerds who are like, ugh, gross, it's popular now. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that at some point Dungeons and Dragons became mainstream. I posit it's literally Critical Role, Stranger Things, 5th edition, like everything that's sunk in. That, actors coming out as gamers is something that was like going on now, and I'm like,
We all wish we could have a man. It's no longer a man cave. It's a man palace.
yeah, I'm
Joe
just,
Manganiello's what was that? It was like on Vanity Fair did like a tour of his man palace,
yeah,
and it's like he has the polystyrene like what a workshop beholder dragon heads.
oh yeah,
What did you say the Dragonlance artist drew his character for him, and it's framed on the wall. Yeah,
I
it's Joe Manganiello. So it's like again, we all want that, and
yeah.
he's okay with showing that off to people.
But there's a time where there were a bunch of tons and tons of actors were playing Dungeons and Dragons or other tabletop RPGs. Henry Cavill, being a Warhammer nerd, only was allowed to leak recently because of COVID. Otherwise, we'd have never known.
Well, that's the other thing is that actors like him, if I'm not working, I'm not earning. So being forced to not work and be in my home for a year I guess I finally get to do my hobby other than just read the Warhammer books. I think when you saw Raul Coley from the iZombie, he had like a whole painting set up, and he had like a whole Star Wars Empire army, and he's a pretty good painter.
Yeah.
And he actually painted like a Reaper model on iZombie for like one of the episodes. Because
Yeah, he's sitting there.
like how
Yeah.
yeah, he's painting a Reaper model under like the magnifier, and it's like, yeah, he knows what he's doing. He's one of us. Uh, and it's just like Ed Sheeran one year was like he was painting. He built 5 Space Marines and put it on his Instagram feed.
Yeah. Well,
It,
I think that like, again the take isn't that this is a bad thing. By the way,
no,
this isn't a bad thing. But in regards to tabletop RPGs, which has got me on this tangent,
Yeah.
I have a horrible habit of referring to tabletop RPGs in a shorthand as Dungeons and Dragons because when I was growing up, if I told people I played RPGs, they had no idea what I meant. And so I had to say D&D so that they understood the way that you say pass me a Kleenex versus pass me a tissue. Like Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons has become the Kleenex, the Band-Aid, the Coca-Cola of tabletop RPGs. It's just a specific thing you use to refer to, and I think that is the ultimate signifier of its ascension to mainstream. That if I tell you I was playing Rifts last weekend, or even Vampire the Masquerade yesterday, and by you I mean the general you're like, huh? If I say I was playing D&D, you know. And now RPG, because of how mainstream and how I don't even say mainstream. Video games are the multi-billion, leaning on trillion-dollar industry. It's the biggest entertainment industry in the world. The biggest, bigger than any sports, bigger than FIFA, bigger than anything, bigger than Hollywood. It is crushing everything. If I say RPG now, just RPG, you think I mean Final Fantasy or Witcher or what? You don't even realize when I say RPG, I mean the purest original form, which was a tabletop RPG, the one that all that stuff is.
There are no bugs in Cyberpunk Red.
Yeah, and so now I have to oh yeah, Cyberpunk Red, no bugs. Your game will not crash unless your GM has a heart attack. I guess. But
that got dark.
sorry, but like the to say RPG now, I can't even just say RPG. I have to say TTRPG, and then I still have to define what's the TT mean to some people. But if I say Dungeons and Dragons, you fucking know what I mean now. Finally, and I'd like So like
Yeah.
I'm secretly angry. That's the only reason I hate D&D right now is because it's like the only game that has that power where I'm like I was playing that and like I've started to use D&D like like Kleenex. I hate it
Yeah.
so much. That's my problem with D&D. Not that it's popular, that it's so popular and that everything else is so popular. I have to like specify using D&D as a shorthand. There you go. There's
Yeah.
my Mephisto soapbox moment for the evening.
Yeah.
Total tangent. Drink your milk. There it was, drinking game style.
Yeah. Now we can get on to the whole. I think the main topic of the evening, which was the creature design thing.
Creature
'Cause we were
design.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were talking about squigs, and I recently watched an 8 hour, or listened to while I was either working or painting, an 8 hour retrospective of Morrowind, which is the Elder Scrolls I've not played because if a game looks too ugly to me, I won't play it.
Morrowind
Um,
was very grainy even for the time.
um, but I think it's a good example of when you create creatures, you can create anything you want. And the Huracan Windrunners, I believe, is their full name. They're not out yet. I'm sorry. I haven't memorized them yet, and it could have
Disgusting.
looked
You
like
you haven't internalized something that only got leaked on accident? You
yes,
disgust
2 days
me.
ago.
Yeah.
Um, they could have looked like anything in the world. It could have looked like a guar, because now I know what a guar is, which is kind of like a bigger squig with like arms. Uh,
You
it could have,
yeah, that came up in the
yeah. I was
discussion
like,
there.
it could have looked like anything. Why it? I think this is a wrong direction. Yes, it doesn't look like a horse anymore. We want more than just horses. Fine. We want more than just unicorns, dragons, phoenixes, and ligers. Okay, what do we do from here? And still keep it thematically appropriate for high elves, which is one with nature, harmony, very much symmetrical order
Are you able to,
details.
and this is the term, vamp for a second because Molly's been texting me. That's why
Yeah.
I haven't been distracted in the bad way. Molly's been
Yeah.
texting me. She needs more info.
I can talk about I can just talk about elves too.
Yeah,
But I
talk
have the
about
chat up.
how
Yeah.
did you get into elves, real quick? Like
All right.
you're a
Oh,
OG
cool.
high elf player, right?
Yes, I
Or
am.
chat gang, you got the chat open.
Yeah.
Chat, it's an AMA stream now for Martin Orlando for the next like 30 seconds or whatever. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
That's also a
All
drinking
right.
game thing. I leave my guest on their own, so drink your milk again.
So I think I got into elves because I mean I saw Lord of the Rings when I was a little kid, um, and I was like when they all get to the first time you see high elves on screen is at the plains of Gorgoroth, and you have Hugo Weaving just like covered in mud and like this the golden armor, and all these samurai looking guys with spears and just like going to town on them. And then they show where they live later on in this beautiful sort of like retirement home built into a valley, a hidden valley. I was like, a lot of people I think get turned off by that because it's like this is boring. This is just not what I'm not what I want out of my favorite fantasy race. Sorry, now I'm looking at the chat. It's about where the armor saddles inspiration came from on the new models. Um, so I think that high elves, at least how they're depicted in Warhammer, which is what I really appreciate, feels like it's if you look at the original David Gallagher sketches, Google David Gallagher Warhammer or David Gallagher High Elves. David Gallagher was an artist, or at least still is, I'm not sure, was an artist for GW through the 2000s and did a lot of the concepts for them in terms of like the race designs. Him and Jess Goodwin, uh, you can see them in the teaser from January of last year, where they say point to elves. And it's an Illyrian Reaver, it's a Spearman, it's an Archer, it's a Swordmaster. And those are all David Gallagher sketches. And I believe in one of the earlier like Warhammer concepts where like you can even see it like scribbled on the art pages. It's a mixture of um, uh, Arthurian England, so kind of like Bretonia, but mixed with Persia, pre-Islam, sort of Near East and Middle East, and your sort of Pan Asia, but mostly like Japan. You get a lot of the samurai stuff, particularly in Illyrian Reavers, which kind of got like the most samurai in there. And you can still see that in the Japanese style bow, which all of the Huracan guys, the new fast cav have. Uh, and they decided with the Lumineth, I think, to kind of double down
on the sort of East Asia vibe, but away from Japan. I think we're starting to really understand that China has a robust art history worth drawing upon for our fantasy cultures. And you see that especially in the Lumineth, I think especially in the Wardens, like just the core spearmen, where you get a lot of that Himalayan nations, Tibet, Nepal, where that mountain area where you separate India and China, and then you get down into like your Thailand, your Vietnam. If you look at a lot of the decorations, like on the horns for the mountain spirit, like there's these clasps on like the tips of the horns and here, which I've seen on a few museum subjects. I don't have my books with me, but it's like that's distinctly um, Thai, like medieval Thai looking sort of stuff, and I really appreciate that. Sorry, looking at the chat again. Do you think we'll see return of the bolt thrower via Tyrion or Teclis? If we do not see a bolt thrower on Saturday, you are not getting a bolt thrower for 2 to 3 years. I think there's a possibility we could get a bolt thrower. I hope it's not on a 160 millimeter oval base. My figure case is already like crying out in agony because I want to try and fit my whole army into one case. Just looking at the chat again. Yeah, I think Tyrion. This is definitely Teclis's half of the army, as we've seen in the Lumineth Battle Tome. There are two hemispheres of Heish because it's like the symbol of Heish, like the wind of magic symbol. It's not a chaos star, as much as people like to see the irony there. And we have the four nations, which are the moon. It's the sun and the moon. The Teklian nations. So we're not getting a new nation on Saturday. It's probably going to be there's going to be a change in allegiance abilities for one of the great nations, one of the four that we've seen that's not Ymetrica, because it's going to probably be one elementary temple per nation. There's going to be two temples on the Teklian side, and there's going to be two temples. I guess now at this point we know it's going to be Zenith and River on the Tyrionic side, the sun side. And my guess is that it's going to be Zytric. It would be weird because I'm used to playing the sub-faction that gets as little love from Games Workshop as possible. They tend to pour as much love into the box art scheme as possible. So yeah, Tyrion not coming up. Bolt thrower maybe. Chat again. I'm sorry, I can't see the chat here. I have to see it on my phone. What do I think best fits the air element? You mean like this is wind, so we already saw the unit. It's going to be probably the Cloud Mage, the one unit, which is our fast cavalry on the sprinting dinosaurs, and we're going to have the big Fox Spirit, which is probably going to be this big nebulous thing. That's going to be cool-ish, I guess. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I mean, it's probably going to look like a cool model. I have been rapid firing. I think I did not stop talking for like 1 second.
Amazing.
Since you left.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Molly's been on a nebulizer.
Yeah.
Her asthma's
I got you.
real bad, and she needed help troubleshooting it. So.
Yeah. So AOS coach, it's called wind. The temples go in a pyramid. Like the further up the ladder you go, the higher towards ascended power you get. And theoretically, like in Stargate, if you reach the top, you ascend, and you probably forego your corporeal body and become pure energy or something. Which is why I think. So Games Workshop engages in, I think, a type of top-down design where they start with the battle line like a core troop or the character, and then they sprout down, and like elements of the design of those core pieces are then spread around and then built into weird ways. So like from Teclis and the Mountain Spirit are like pyramids of their own that trickle down into the normal units. So the main dangler of the launch range is the Light of Eltharion. Now, I think a lot of the vibe that Lumineth give off is that of a fantasy Eldar. Eldar, now I don't know all of their lore, but they have a main unit called Wraithguard, which are these egghead robots, which I believe are powered by the ghosts of dead elves.
Bound in hell. That's metal. Mechs
Okay.
powered by ghosts. Yeah.
Yeah, ghosts of elves. And Eltharion is a ghost in an empty suit of armor, like Wraithguard. And I lamented that, okay, that must mean that they designed a unit to, like, basically fit his style. And we didn't get that. So it's really on his own, just like being his own thing. But I think if we get one unit per temple, which is I think what is going to end up happening. Like I don't think we're getting a lot more. We've seen like about 40%, if not half, of what they're showing off for Lumineth in these 2 leaked images. Uh, I think for the Zenith, as you get higher up in the temple, you get more energy, big brain, and so I think the Zenith, they have shed their corporeal existence altogether. And so they are still alive. They are still the spirits of their former selves, but they fight in these empty suits of armor. And so you can have a unit, if it's not a skirmisher, it's like 3 in a box, and it's just these big suits of empty armor powered by ascended elves. I think there's your angel elves. Vince wanted angel elves, your Heish angels. There's your angels. It's just they're not people inside. It's just suits of armor.
Oh, cool.
Because design wise, he doesn't have any sort of companion. He's truly like, even for the characters tend to get their own thing, but they're like, even in OBR, there's no one character in your army which is so utterly removed from the other design cues that OBR have.
No, not really. Like it's a
Like,
very visually cohesive army.
yeah, yeah. Like Vokmordian he's wearing a coffin, right? That's the big turtle thing like on his back. Yeah, Vokmordian. You have the Soul Mason. You have what's the guy in the chair?
That's the Soul Mason is the guy in the chair.
Okay, then who's the guy building the
Shaper? That's a Bone Shaper.
Cool. Bone Shaper, and then you have the Scythe guy. I think the Scythe guy maybe counts, but even then, he's only a little bit removed, like on his own, to make it feel unique. That's about it.
No, he's pretty much he's rocking the same armor. He's
Yeah,
got his head's a little like he's got like
it's made out of 2 like shark jawbones, which is cool.
Yeah, it's super awesome. No, I think this is one of the more underrated sculpts in the range. He's actually like held aloft. He's literally floating, which is something you don't realize. His cape is the attached point. So he's levitating forth.
That's the one thing I dislike about the Light of Eltharion model. They sculpt wheatgrass. They're sculpting more of bases now because you can do that in ZCAD.
Yeah.
And so there's all of these wheatgrass bits, and part of Eltharion is suspended by his cape against some wheatgrass.
What I don't like about Eltharion is the fact that we're not calling out that he reminds me of Malik from Legacy of Kain Blood Omen nearly enough to tie.
I don't know what that is.
Malik is an animated suit of armor. He fails to protect the High Council in the game, and so he is punished by being stripped of his flesh to be an animated suit of armor to only be capable of guarding now. He is only armor now going forward, and it's super.
Gotcha. So do you have the creature thread open?
I've got the one with Spider King. Response. Is that what you're talking about with the creature thread?
Yeah, because while you were gone, I talked about how I summarized basically our last show, where you can see the original concept sketches for what high elves were, because they were really redesigned from 5th to 6th to 7th edition fantasy by an artist by the name of David Gallagher, and a lot of the inspirations, the historical influences for them are written on the concept art, which you can find online. And I said we switched to we kind of switched regions for the low fantasy stuff of the army. The historical and art history influences shifted geography a little bit, and I thought that was a good call. It was a good use of those influences. But now we've gotten to a point where I think the major stickler is not the big silly hats. They've always had big silly hats. They just look different now. It's that they're writing weird creatures that aren't normally associated with Tolkien-esque high elves.
Well, and that's the thing is this is something I have said before. I don't care how many elf sculpts there are. The Tolkien high elf Tolkien elves for so many people is fantasy to them. That's we talked about like Game of Thrones, like and a whole sort of genre of fantasy holding up on the fact that they've just jettisoned elves from it.
Can I swear? Because I want to
Yes,
say
you
a line from Lindsay Ellis, hot fantasy, that fucks. Because that was a transition in a few of I think in her Game of Thrones video.
And like
And it's like, yes,
hot
yeah,
fantasy.
hot fantasy, that fucks.
Yeah, there was like man, there's like an honest trailer or something like that that did that, right? Or
No, when she did her Game of Thrones retrospective and like the thumbnail is Dragon Lady Bat.
Lindsay Ellis, yeah, Lindsay Ellis,
Yes. Yeah.
fantastic YouTuber. I don't know her; she's never addressed me personally, and never will
It's
because
fine.
she is in like the stratosphere of like great content creators of YouTube. Lindsay Ellis's breakdown of of not Lord of the Rings of Game of
Hobbit.
Thrones. Was it Hobbit?
Well, and Hobbit. And
Oh,
Game
the
of Thrones.
Hobbit, where
She's
she
done
actually
all-
goes to New Zealand,
Yeah.
because she's trying to like sort of figure out the disconnect in her emotions. Like,
Yes.
really great stuff. Really great stuff. Also, she does the Death
Yep.
of the Author series, which is pretty great, and stuff that I
Yeah.
talk about a lot. It's like
But anyway,
we had the same school of thought initially, but she's just like amazing, and I am not. So go watch her instead, and just imagine that those are things I would want to talk about.
the first step towards improvement is wanting to.
Yeah, I suppose. I just want to catch up on some stuff here from Chat Gang real quick because I know that you glossed over the LOL stuff. I don't play LOL anymore.
League of Legends.
Yeah, but if I did, I would. Be
I tried
playing...
it twice, and then I noticed it didn't have a story, and then I turned it off, and I'm like, no thanks.
Shamefully, it does have a great story. It's just not in the game. Like it's like Overwatch.
And,
Overwatch has a really robust story. It's just not in the fucking game. Like,
yeah, I don't like the design aesthetic of the what do you call champion based fighter games? Or is that the
MOBAs.
term?
MOBAs.
Yeah, MOBAs, where every champion is such a unique, like very superhero style of design. I feel like your world has no cohesion, and it's more almost like Warhammer, but like hyper stylized, where it's like you want different champions to appeal to people both visually and gameplay wise.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't buy into worlds built on that aesthetic of marketability.
Interesting, because that's literally all of anime. Is like, how cool is this character and what do they do?
Oh, I know that, and
like that's all of anime.
I know that. My guilty pleasure was Bleach.
See,
and
Bleach is the MOBA of
yeah,
anime.
I got through like a few books and like I eventually like 200 episodes, and I'm like, what did I do with my brain?
Kubo
Like this,
tight, like Kubo.
um,
Yeah,
and the only other one I liked was Battle Angel Alita, which is just
one of the OG
one
greats though.
one of the OG. That's it. I have never really like I love the art style, like especially the Ghibli stuff.
Old Vampire Hunter D manga. I had forgotten how great that art was. But we were talking.
Most of it turned me on. Yeah, creatures stuff. AOS creatures.
Sorry. Indigo Girl says the game is a disease. League of Legends is a disease. Sorry, I've uninstalled World of Warcraft countless times. I actually called up Blizzard, called them physically on the phone and had them lock my account, which is why I haven't been playing it. Although I found out that whilst making my BlizzNet account to play like Overwatch and Diablo and stuff, they unlocked my World of Warcraft account anyway. So like, thanks Blizzard.
I have never played a single instance of WoW. I have not. MMOs are not what I find entertaining. I don't.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
It's depends. It's a different social experience. Like if Warhammer is all I need for a social experience. Like I'd rather have the in person thing. I mean, when Halo was popular, I was sort of like, hey, when my friends enjoyed Halo, we would play cooperatively. Um, that's it. That is the extent of my online play.
Hmm.
I'm a very different nerd from I think a lot of the nerds that have been into Warhammer for a long time.
Yeah. Apparently you gave people a history lesson on armor too while I was gone.
I gave people an art history lesson on my interpretation of the evolution of high elves and how they're depicted by Games Workshop.
Right on. Did you mention the swirlies, like all in the the filigree, like essentially like all throughout?
Oh yeah, so you can tell when they're elementary temple units when they have that sort of cloud pattern, which is almost like the etching in like fine china, like it's very much like a cloud pattern. And what's the type of art where you break pottery and then put it back together with gold leaf?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the name.
Yeah, chat, Google that,
Yeah.
and someone will tell us. It's a specific type of art, and like you break pottery, you put it back together with gold. So like
You
literal
melt it.
solid gold is filling in the imperfections and everything.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me. Um, and I mean it's a pain because I have to edge highlight all that, uh, and I can't wait for. Oh, there we go. Nitsugi or kintsugi. I can't pronounce the Japanese word, but yeah, it's that.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean
and
that's awesome. Um
yeah,
and
that's what it reminds me of.
Indigo Girls also saying gotta watch Cowboy Bebop. Yes, everyone should watch
With
the
a robot
greatest.
corgi.
Everyone should watch the greatest anime ever made. I so I've shared the story before, but you treat every episode of Rantcast like it's someone's first episode. My name is the Magical Mr. Mephisto. That is my name. This is left over from a club in college some 18 years ago called OA, Otaku Anonymous. Uh, it was anonymous, so you didn't know the real name of the humans. If you went to when the first meeting, you had no name. You were just a rando plebe. If you went back, you got a OA name. Uh, I wanted to be Mephisto because I played a ton of Diablo 2. There was an anime character in Demon City Shinjuku named Mephisto, and there's a Commodore 64 game called Mr. Mephisto. So I wanted to be Mephisto, and my friend sitting there was like, Mephisto is too cool. You have to be the magical Mr. Mephisto because it sounds like a magical bunny rabbit. That is technically my entire OA nickname. That whole sentence. But then
Yeah.
you get to shorten it to just Mephisto. Um, and at the time, you're asked like, "Well, what's your favorite anime?" I said Cowboy Bebop. They told me I couldn't say that was my favorite anime because it was too good. That's the kind of club OA was. And it's been like 20 years now, and there's been like a billion bajillion animes that have come out. There's Crunchyroll, so you don't just like get anime by like getting VHS tapes sent to you from some weird online club or some call-in
That's
number
how that.
that
Yeah,
you
but that's how it started.
but that is how that's how I started. Calling a
Yeah,
number and like getting anime shipped to me or like knowing some college kids somewhere where I got a recorded VHS tape that they
that
fan
was the benefit
dubbed.
of conventions. You could go watch the VHS tapes without having them delivered to you. You could just go watch them until like 4 a.m.
Yeah, yeah. My first con jobs was the video game or was the anime room security for like fan subs and fan dubs in
Yep.
so like except in by the time I got to college it wasn't VHS anymore, it was DivX CDRs.
Yeah.
So you had like a spool of burned anime that was not technically illegal because it's not licensed in America, and then it's got to be fan subbed or fan dubbed, and like the rooms that were always popping off the most were like the fan dubs of like crazy like 80s early 90s anime that you just like oh, so bad. I've seen some really
Yeah.
terrible things. But
I'm sure.
like the Lucky Gun, I will never forget Lucky Gun. There's a Abimaru, Ebimaru, something like that. There's an anime where like this whole thing is like a cat with a magical
Do we
TV.
really do we really want to give these probably long dead travesties more oxygen?
It has a magical TV in its tummy that summons whatever its kid best friend can imagine. And there is a
Huh.
literal episode where it imagines a gun into its stomach, and and there are five lucky bullets and one unlucky bullet. And so he goes around for a whole episode convincing people to shoot themselves because he doesn't want to get the one unlucky bullet. And naturally, everybody keeps getting a lucky bullet and their whole lives are great. And it's an anime with a kid with a gun convincing people to shoot themselves. That's
Uh, no thanks.
like when you talk about weebs, That's it's the darkest Teletubbies timeline. uh the point is Cowboy Bebop is the greatest anime of all time, and
Yes,
wasn't allowed.
because it is an Android corgi.
It's not an android corgi; it's a data dog.
Okay, how's that different?
Because it's just a super smart dog. It's not a
Okay.
robot dog.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Now we're ready to do the creature.
I am not a good guest when it comes to anime.
This is what makes it better because I'm not a good anime host.
Yeah, this is not an anime channel. We came here to talk about high elves and art history,
Right.
and occasionally vampires.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So we had a discussion the other day as we were disseminating the understanding that high elves, 5 high elves with longbows are riding into battle on sprinting. They are not marsupials, despite Games Workshop's marketing. And I will leave it to others to discuss how frustrating Games Workshop's marketing can be sometimes. In that we all thought they were kangaroos. They look like kangaroos. They're shaped like kangaroos. They're colored like kangaroos. They're not kangaroos.
Well, and they even did the video of of.
Well, they shot that in an hour.
And AOS Coach dubbed, as I understand, AOS Coach actually was the voice of the Australian, because there's some Brit dude, and then he's like, "Oh, I think they'd sound like this." And my understanding is that AOS Coach actually sent them a tape of him speaking in native Australian for them to dub in that segment.
I would like to tread a very fine line here, and that the person who was pretending to be an Australian is a very dear friend of mine. But I want to try and keep that separate from what he does for the company. And even though they shot that in an hour to stem the bleeding on some pretty bad leaks, that was kind of a silly, dumb video.
I liked it. I busted Coach's chops. So that's why I'm just gonna keep, because he says in it he says hi-ish. Well, can you name the human? Because I don't want to just be like the human on the left side.
Well, there's Nick and Peachy. They've named themselves before.
Yeah.
It's like there's pictures of me at Warhammer Worlds playing Nick, and he's a cool.
So Nick's the one who does the Australian accent.
Yes.
Okay, because he goes hi-ish, and then when I did the vampire video at the beginning of the week, I said it sounded like Coach, and then I made up this whole headcanon where Coach actually recorded that audio for them in a pinch so that they could get an authentic accent. Because I've heard Coach say hi-ish. It's Hysh. Where's the extra syllable come from? It's just something that exists in the Upside Down, I guess.
Yeah. How did they shoot it in an hour? How the hell did they do that with the COVID protocols? They're never in the same shot.
Yeah, it's true. They shoot.
Yeah, they're in the same room, but they're not in the same shot. They were in the room by themselves each time. It's a miracle what you can do with film if you don't notice it if you not really Yeah.
My tinfoil hat has just been confirmed. AOS Coach dropped 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that Chat Gang ain't nothing to fuck with. AOS Coach, of course, being part of Chat Gang because we are all Chat Gang if you watch RantCast. And then he redeemed 100 to highlight his message and say confirmed. So he did do the audio takes for
very
Nick.
Well.
Because they went for authenticity in the video. It might have only been recorded in an hour, but they wanted an authentic Australian accent. And you got to go to the biggest name in the biz.
Absolutely. They did their leak department video from last year and said we need to up the budget. We need to bring in our chief Australian expert, and none better than Mr. Macro himself.
Right. This is what happened. This is canon.
Yes.
You cannot tell me otherwise. This is real. You got to get the authentic accent. This is all I'm saying.
Yes.
Go on. All right, continue. So
we have this video where it's like they and then they put up this whole thing where we see our vampire, we see the Huracan,
see Milady the vampire. Yeah.
Yes. And we
or my dude, androgyny rocks too. Go on.
And Lord Regent, and so we get this reaction where it's like we're not only those who were hoping for the sort of the cowmen or the yak men to be an isolated part of the army, that dream was dashed utterly upon the rocks, and it is
Smoke
now,
its ruin upon the rocks.
yes. So it's creatures galore, but the question is this bad? Uh, what or I forget what was the true question, because it's like my critique is it looks too much like things we know. It could have looked like anything. It could have been like a wholly new thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I use Morrowind as an example, because Morrowind is something when I think of like truly like out there creatures. If we want to use Warhammer as an example, Stormcast, the best creatures they have are the ones that don't look like
Well,
just
like the
Avatar,
Dracoline are
Dracods, and Dracolines, Godzilla ponies, and your gorilla tigers. It's or I even then
what the
they look more.
evocators are riding are like
Those are
probably
Dracolines.
yeah, those are
Yeah,
I call them Dracolines, but yeah, the Dracolines, that's my favorite one in the whole range.
yeah,
Like it's so it
and
looks
they are
like
beyond.
it's like a quadrupedal panthro from the Thundercats. It's so awesome. Like I don't even like
It is more than just a combination of animals. The Lord Regent is a jaguar with the head of an antelope. Uh, our dinosaur kangaroo things look like they're just like kangaroos with like sort of dinosaur features. They look, in my critique is they look too similar to things we know, especially with how they're painted, which is why people thought they were kangaroos.
and I just imagine a different reality where they're not painted natural colors. What the read would have been on them, because I think if you go back, you talk about the Dracoline, if you paint them like tiger colors, people will see them as tigers and pumas and
Yeah,
stuff.
I painted mine like tiger colors.
Yeah, like if that initial teaser of them hadn't been in like the blue and the with the underbelly and stuff like that, if it had been in orange and black stripes, people would have appropriated
Yeah.
tiger to them instead. But your first read of them got to be unnatural via the coloration. So I
Yes.
get what you're saying, where like you don't think they went far enough and they could have done anything and they didn't do enough. I think their greatest mistake was painting them natural colors. If they had
Yeah, they could
painted
have been
them,
like cream and white, like some of the off-color Griff Chargers
or
were for like the Vanguard chambers.
or if you paint these with tiger stripes. Now imagine if they're like orange and stuff like that, like what your brain would do, how it would like short circuit, and you would be trying to see the Parasaurolophus or the Tauntaun from freaking
Star
from
Wars.
Star Wars, but then you're looking at tiger stripes and your brain would just short circuit a little bit and you'd be forced to like hammer the gaps between the dissonance between like this. I want to see humans want to see patterns. We need to. It's how our brains
Yes.
are wired. We seek patterns and familiarity. You actually suck at seeing human faces, by the way. Did you know that, dear human? You don't see human
Yes.
faces. You essentially pre-render them based on like what you understand a human face to be, because there's too many details in a human face to see in real time. Your brain doesn't want to use the capacity on rendering every human feature. We do this with everything. The minute these were painted, whoever in the pipeline was like, these should be kangaroo colors.
Yeah, the heavy metal and army painters.
Yeah, whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm not harshing on them. The minute they
No,
did that,
it's mostly color theory, the reasoning why, because the Metrica has that off white with the rose gold, and the
now you
orange.
need
Yeah,
the orange because you got the
yeah,
blue.
your warm colors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But again, you could have gone like more warm, more orange, more tiger. Go tiger stripe. You could. The minute
right.
they made that choice, this was doomed to mess with people's perception of the army. It was
Yeah,
just
or that unit at least.
that unit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them just yet, because my armor on the elves is a crimson, like that very cold purple, almost reddish, like you've seen on Vince's Chaos Warriors, which is where I got my color scheme from for the armor.
I want.
I'm thinking of
Go ahead. What you're thinking of?
I was with like maybe a snow like a snow leopard sort of white. First of all, it depends on if they're going to be in my army or not. I have to see the rules. I want to write some lists. Um,
We're okay.
uh,
I'm not the great painter you are, but I have the understanding you have because I have a art creative mind. My thought went silver and white with them. So I like that you went snow leopard, because like I would
Yeah.
go. I want unnatural colors sometimes. Like I painted my Mortek guard armor. I'm like, screw military realism. I went like their armor's purple. Like the hardest color to actually get into metal. But I'm like,
Yes.
because they have death magic is amethyst.
Yeah, and like you can just like add pigment to grave sand or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, whatever.
Uh,
I'm like, it's made up. It's magic. I don't have to like
yeah.
make sense.
I will explain another time, or maybe in my video, I'll explain the whole lore thing for coloration and whatnot. But that's a subject for another time, explaining why your army is colored a certain way. Because there's already a fallacy in this game that you have to wave your hand over because of colored armor. Colored armor is just not a thing that's done in history. Um, and if you decided to try and stick to that, every army would have just metal armor, and that's not only boring from a toy like a gaming toy perspective,
Yeah,
but
like
it's
we
also
want to
very
see
hard to pull
varied.
everything apart.
We want to see
Right.
varied stuff. But yeah, go on, continue.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's we just let go of that and say, okay, they have blue armor, they have red armor, they have purple armor, they have green armor. It doesn't matter. How is their armor green or purple or whatever? Is it painted? Do they have access to paint? If you think about this too hard, it ruins the magic. Um, so I think I wanted to understand a little bit more where you stand on this with the like, are you happy with how like using these creatures that are like almost alike things we know in our real world? Like the Lord Regent's a better example because you can clearly see it's almost like Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's already a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender vibes in terms of I think the inspiration for stuff in this
That's
book.
not even a bad thing. It's
Yeah, I'm right.
one of the best cartoons ever.
But a lot of the creature design, because the creatures are generally, I don't want to say an afterthought, but how they're implemented, it's just like, with the exception of like the key animals, like your sky bison, or like the creatures which teach the elemental magic to humans, everything else is just a hybrid. Your platypus bear, your God, what's Momo? Like a monkey lemur or whatever it was called. But they're always like it's a hyphen thing. Like platypus bear is probably just the best example. It's the two animals just combined together. The Lord Regent is a jaguar or like they're all plains creatures because we're seeing from the early lore of the snippets in the Lumineth Battle Tome, like the desert with these creatures are of the desert and of the Great Plains, regardless if they're in Asia or Africa. This is like a cougar or a jaguar mixed with the head of an antelope, with a little bit of like cow stuff in there because the horns are not quite like an antelope's horns. Uh,
Well, these are
are
like,
you?
am I okay? Go
Yeah.
on, finish your.
No, no. I'm just hammering home the question. Are you okay with these just being hybrids?
I like your point, like because we had this long discussion with Yumi, Paul, and like some other intersecting opinions, right?
Yeah.
The opinion you said were like it doesn't go far enough because it could have been anything. To
Yeah.
reiterate,
It could have been like a squig, like a squig. As regardless of how silly a squig is, there's nothing like a squig in nature. And if you don't want high elves writing creatures like those that we can associate in nature, which is weird, like, but they have horses. Um, the dinosaur riders or the Huracan are replacing a unit which was riding horses.
this is where I like Paul's take though,
Okay.
because the horse centric thing is a very our reality of winners selecting things through history to reflect our history and to be
Yeah.
like in the mortal realms there are possibilities of whatever crazy stuff. So I don't like the it should be horses take. Like you got your horses, you got your Dawn Riders. They're pretty cool. Like come on now. Now I want the crazy stuff. And so, like, I feel like I'm caught between two worlds because I agree with you in that it could have gone crazier, but then I
Yeah.
also dislike the, like, well, why isn't it just horses? Ugh. Like, no,
Yeah.
because they're not going to ride just horses. They're in an infinite possibilities realm where whatever indigenous species is there, and they're going to, like, take the thing that's local and going on and so on and so forth. I think the big crux of it all is that to be elves and to read as elves, we have to acknowledge that they connect to nature as we understand it.
Hmm.
And so they picked very our history, natural nature elements, and then they made them a little weird.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they did because they didn't want to go too far. Because like white lions ride gigantic lions and you know like you have a
Yeah, the infamous lion chariot,
yeah
which is possibly one of the most ridiculous. I hate to say, like, it was one of the most ridiculous things I think in the army.
it
The
was
the idea that two, yeah,
but it's cool you know real
yeah,
cool
yeah,
man and
oh
and and
yeah,
and, and I think that
I
became
like the lion chariot, but it's ridiculous.
but that I think that became I think that hamstrung the possibilities of elves because elves like even we even moved away from dragons. It's phoenixes and lions. I spent a year asking this question to elf players to put together a series of Alphasode episodes, and I grabbed Bryce, and because I think you had a really good point about like being traditionally elven players. I even had Tom on with Chuck Moore for an Alphasode
Yes.
episode, and I think that one's
Hmm.
really great because you get his perspective on um like Tom has to kind of play a caricature, like a caricature of himself on Warhammer Weekly, but he does a really good job of not like poo-pooing people the whole time. Like I'm in a like a chat with him and Vince because
Oh, I'm well aware. Yeah.
like he shows a great deal of restraint. He's very clear about how like it's not for me. I'm not shitting on you. But like then when it's time to like go live, he has to be Tom on the Vince and Tom show. And
Because
that
people find it entertaining.
right. And this undermines the nuance of what he truly believes about stuff. Him and I are currently talking in a vampire thread on Facebook, which I never do, but someone was so wrong with their take, I had to say something. And
Yeah.
like him and I, where he like actually does want the vampirates, and I'm like, actually, I'm cool with the high gothic, and like, so we don't, we both want different things from the vampire army, but we both agree that this person is wrong. You know, like he's not. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah. So there's a comment from Wissurin. Tolkien elves do not always equal nature. A little bit just of a quick art history thing. Our perception of elves and how they are designed goes beyond the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, but not by much. He was inspired. Hmm?
You're gonna talk about like essentially like
Yeah.
Irish folklore and Celtic folklore.
No, Alan Lee and John Howe, which
Okay.
were the two concept. They were either commissioned by the Tolkien estate, or they did a lot of calendars, art books, and stuff like that. You can buy their sketchbooks. And Peter Jackson, like uh, there's like a there was they even did stuff for like Ralph Bakshi, I think. And Peter Jackson was like, I like this artwork so much. We've been borrowing from it from pre-production so much. Let's just hire them. And they created what we understand Hobbiton to be. Some of the stuff that they did, like they only did this much of Isengard, but then they did the rest of the tower, and that became a model and stuff like that. So our concept and understanding of what like traditional high and wood elves look like are probably thanks to those two artists, and that goes much beyond. Like, yes, it's for Lord of the Rings, but you can look up what art for Lord of the Rings looked like prior to the movies. It is a thing that I was listening to a review of Lord of the Rings by a fantasy novelist YouTuber, It's like you can. It's an interesting dive to just try and understand the style, the perceived sort of aesthetic that Lord of the Rings has before Peter Jackson came in and did a tremendous job. But he did such a good job, it changed our perspective and expectations for certain design styles forever. And I don't think we'll ever really get away from that. It's not a bad thing, but it is unnecessary to understand.
Well, it's like
And
it's like Geiger or Giger with
yes, for the
with
aliens, right?
xenomorphs, right? Like
Yeah.
this is
Or Sid Meier for anything cyberpunk.
yeah.
Yeah. Because he was one of the guys who did the original concept art for all the Blade Runner stuff.
Yeah.
And that trope creation there.
Yeah, what we know is like essentially like retro future, like
Yes.
that whole aesthetic is
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean this ties into some of the cyberpunk shit I've been talking about too is when do we care too much about the aesthetic element of the thing versus the
Yeah.
sort of philosophical element of the thing? I think
Yeah.
aesthetics are easier to embrace. It takes a lot less. It takes a lot less thought to be like, that looks like the thing I like. I want more
Oh
of
yeah,
that.
yeah. If say what you want about Cyberpunk 2077, they recreated
Crushed.
the setting.
Crushed.
Yeah, they created the setting of Night City to a T
Crushed it.
in and like even added a little bit of our modern touches, but just a little bit, like smartphones and stuff like that.
No, I
Um,
was there's I was playing there's a mission where like I have to go swap out I got to go hack a shrine, like a literal like
but
Shinto
yeah,
Buddhist.
just trying. Yeah,
Yeah, I had to go hack a shrine, and which is like, I see you, cyberpunk game. So I have to go like hack a shrine, and like I like went total stealth mode to get the bonus XP. Like drop in, nobody saw me, hack the shrine, get out, and I had this moment where I'm standing up on the building rooftop, and it's the classic like clay sort of layered shingle like Japanese aesthetic Shinto shrine, and I'm staring at Night City with these crazy geometric shaped skyscrapers and lights, and there's a highway divided in between, and a couple little plant life near me, and I'm like, this is gorgeous. If this was like
hmm
rendered and shot in cinema, or it existed in reality and you had a camera to capture this moment, I'm like, this is beautiful. This is it. This is like peak experience of this game. I have a lot of gripes about it, but the
Oh
visuals are
yeah,
not
me
one of
too.
them. The visuals and the aesthetic is not one of my gripes. And to walk this back a little bit more toward Age of Sigmar, it's like it's like when you go into a game like Cyberpunk, you're expecting one thing, right? I am only expecting my retro future, you know, steeped in some like weird 80s xenophobia for Japan, because we in the 80s we thought Japan was the future and they were going to take over everything, so it's new yen currency and yada yada yada. Yeah, there's a disturbing xenophobia to cyberpunk, your beloved genre, which is why I have like problems with the game now in like 2020 slash 2021, where I'm like, oh yeah, we still think Japan's the bad guys, and every Japanese character except for one has been a bad guy, and then there's the Japanese caricature anime fan that I have to save, and I'm just like, whoo, your politics are cringe, but your aesthetics are great. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
It's not my game. I got into it because I was like, oh, I can play Blade Runner the game, and I did not get that. So,
no, I'm just saying, like, when you go into cyberpunk, I
right.
went into politics. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry to bring politics into video games and politics into gaming, because they're not there already. Uh,
We did that. We did that 2 episodes ago with Hey, well, it's fine.
No, but when you're looking at Age of Sigmar, you're not just coming here for one aesthetic, and I
Yeah.
and that is
Half of the magic is what people do with the model kits.
it's such a challenge. It's
You'd
such a
you'd be surprised how many people are sold on Lumineth based on my Instagram feed. I don't want to brag, but it is something that has happened, and it's not unique to me. It's if you think of what Vince does for his Slanesh, what Oscar Lars has done with Stormcast and his Maggotkin of Nurgle, and it doesn't have to just be the good famous painters. It can be just you seeing someone else's board at a tournament and being like, I really appreciate what you did with that army.
well,
And that has given me ideas
well,
for when I get home and start working on stuff.
well, two things here. The first thing, Kicker is already selling people vampires in the future. I shared he put the IDK boat back together, green stuffed all the planks. I sent you photos of that in our
Yeah.
conversation prior to this.
Yes.
Like he's already selling vampires to somebody down the line because they're maybe the vampires come out and they're not piratical enough, but they're gonna see his vampire work that he's been putting in this whole time, and like they're gonna be inspired. And I even think about like Haywo's story of you before you were Martin Orlando to me.
Yeah, I wanted to give my side of that as soon as you're done this tangent because I thought that was fun. But yeah, you were saying like Haywo was talking about
Well,
me as Stormcast man.
yeah, like you're a good painter, Stormcast man, and yada yada yada. But his big take is always like, the way to know if you want to get into Age of Sigmar or not is to go physically somewhere and watch people play Age of Sigmar. I
Yeah.
I am a I'm a 21st century digital boy, like Bad Religion would sing it. I love technology. I fully embrace technology. I'm a curmudgeon in a couple ways, which is like books is like one of my big shticks. I just like can't get on board with reading PDFs and it, I it's a me thing. It's not the technology thing. But for the most part,
You're allowed to have your own quirks.
yeah. But for the most part, like I fully embrace
I don't like
technology.
MMOs. That's my quirk.
TTS
Sure.
is another one where I'm like, I love this tool, this technology. You can play with your friend from Australia from here right now in real time. You can play a game of Age of Sigmar with this human in the future, and that's beautiful. I love that about technology. But then I just have these little quirks, and 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 Haywo's take about, if you're not sure, dear internet human, dear chat gang, if you've just been consuming all the like new YouTube feeds and all the links to a Spotify or whatever, and you're just listening to podcasts, and you're like, do I buy into Age of Sigmar? Do I? No. The only way to truly know, and I understand that this is kind of crummy considering we're still living through a pandemic. You gotta go and look at War. You gotta go see Warhammer live. You got Age of Sigmar. You need to physically be in a room, because you're gonna walk up to a Mike Butcher table where he's got all of his ogres converted, old school, like Gutbusters. Not even the new, with this awesome like sort of Chinese Chianku like style aesthetic, and like you're like, it's Kung Fu Panda, it's ogres, it's Dragonland.
It's extra, just everything.
You're
There's
just
always like that extra, like just his own taste.
yeah, you're gonna see the person who has the Nurgle army that is pure Tim Burton, like oogie boogie guos and pumpkin patches everywhere. There, and you're gonna see the possibilities. 'Cause for me, and this ties back into our main subject. For me, Age of Sigmar is about possibility. For me,
Hmm.
that is something that 40K doesn't have, as much as they can have some really great looking like stuff, and as cool as the overall premise is, because the premise is super sweet. But like, and something that the old world will never have, because the old world just feels stuffy and contained in a box, because it's got to be like weird Europe.
People who are waiting for the old world that I know personally. I am not using this to paint a brush for the Phantom. I will not do that. But the people who are in my immediate circle, who are all um, ride hard diehards for fantasy exclusively, who say I have less than 100% brain capacity for enjoying a game with a priority roll, let alone something that killed, fantasy. They want to live someplace where they're comfortable without change, and that is not what Age of Sigmar is. The
Right,
Huracan unit is an example of that.
right.
you are still thematically getting your high elves, but they are changed forever in a way that is thematically appropriate. And if you don't want that, the hobby is still open to the possibility of, like what Tom's saying, use your Illyrian Reavers or put them on something else. I'll be interested to see the sprues and see like if there's room to like put them on, like Cold One mounts from they used to be called Cold One Knights or
I
Cold One
still know
Riders
them as
from
Cold Ones. They have a different weird name. I have no idea what it is. Draco
Order
born
Drake Spawn
draking
Knights.
draking
Yeah, Drake Spawn Knights.
draking dude knights. I don't know. Like
Uh-huh.
I refuse to internalize this weird
Yeah.
name.
If I may add, just as a thing where it's like we're open to possibilities. I don't want to talk just about my homebrew without a more established presentation for it. But mostly, it's I am incorporating all of this true to life art history, all of these Italian Renaissance oil painting colors into the fabrics. All of these, I'm trying to paint colors as if they were um, based on photo references of naturally plant-based dyes for like period accurate sort of like clothing. But to balance that, because we have a scale here, I decided on a non-traditional skin tone. I made them like Hellboy, Elric of Melnibone elves with the white hair and the gold eyes
I
and the
I
blue
just bought
lips.
my Super Blu-ray collector's edition of Hellboy 2 in the Golden Army with the director's cut because, like, whenever someone's like elves aren't badass, I'm just like,
Yeah.
like
For Adepticon, I will bring the Hellboy 2 art design book for you to look through, which is basically just a bunch of Guillermo del Toro sketches with stills from the
well,
movie,
well,
and it goes.
two of the great artistic minds of all time, Guillermo del Toro and Mignola,
Mike Mignola.
Mike Mignola, like together at last, like because he's got this weird like crude oblong like portions mean nothing to him. It's about the art,
Oh yeah,
like, and
yeah.
then you have Guillermo del Toro, who's just all about like evoking an emotion in the scene with the
hmm
physicality of it all. And I'm like that's why the new one didn't work.
I
Neither
didn't
of the
say it.
it didn't work
I didn't need to. I saw the trailer. I was like,
because the art
we're
was
good.
devoid. It was gone. It wasn't there. Um,
Yes, it's not the same. I totally understand, and so it's we should be like it should always be okay in a medium like Warhammer, which I think is it's not only it's it's the main attraction where you all of the lore, all of the facts and sort of like the setting, all of this is just a sandbox for someone to build use as an outlet for their own imagination. You can be like the Ultramarines player, where I get my hobby on by doing all of the stripes, the command markings, the true to form. I want it to appear as it does in the stories because that's my hobby. You can get someone like Ricky Smith, where it's like I'm going to take a bunch of Slanesh daughters, Deepkin, and Orcs and Skaven, and make my own army, and that's cool. His Midnight City stuff, where he used like 30K vehicles as like these dreadnought chassis for like KO and Cities of Sigmar stuff, that's great. And you can have stuff that's in between, where because it is a spectrum, it's a welcoming place indeed, where we're okay with whatever someone wants to do, whether they want it to be lower fantasy or more mythic. Um, Bare bones and I just want to paint it like it should be painted, to the I'm gonna paint it psychedelic colors. There are certain concept armies out there which require a little bit of explanation, but once you get that explanation from someone, you can see it and be like, I love everything about that. Facehammer podcast, Byron, he's been working on a Beast of Chaos army, which is supposed to be, he calls it the Nightmare Army, and each one of the units is the manifestation of a different type of nightmare. And he only just started on it,
this is
and it's like he's
Orde, Byron Orde.
yeah, Byron, yeah, and I
Orde.
think he was making his own Bellacore out of different things. And again, I haven't talked to him in a while. This is like already last summer that he was talking about this. I'm sure it's much further along now, but it's these well thought out high concept armies that once you say it, once he says it, you see it, and then it's like I'm not going to forget that. I want to play against that. I don't care if that also came to kick face. I want to play against that just to get that experience.
Yeah. I want to see my models on
And
the table versus those models on the table. Like I want that
yes,
experience. Yeah. Have you talked to Sean Benson in Australia much? Like he's very into like Caravaggio like painting.
probably not. I unfortunately have not been able to converse with as many Australian sort of
Well,
content creators as I like.
he's an American that moved to Australia.
Okay.
You talk about like the sort of like classical art sensibilities and stuff like that. Like you would really hit it off with him, I think, talking about some of this because like
Yeah.
his whole like Caravaggio, like using this palette of limited colors to create all of this stuff, and I think you and him could have some really great
Yeah.
conversations. So
Oh yeah.
Twitter
No,
them
I, d- I don't.
Sean Zor or Sean Benson, like
Oh, I think I've seen that name before.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I'll go take a look at his stuff.
Like
Yeah,
around the
yeah.
time I was talking to him about chiaroscuro and stuff, I'm just like, all right, like
And well, for me, the history stuff is not so much like the specific painters. Like if I say Van Dyck or Italian painters, it's not so much their style. I want to capture that. We were talking earlier about like the eye roll sort of like hot fantasy that fucks the human centric low fantasy, where it's just two steps away from being nonfiction. Like the fantasy elements are really on the periphery and are not the main attraction, or at least the Game of Thrones is not the main attraction until the very end of the story or the end of certain chapters. Um, my favorite novel, I guess it's almost, I guess it's a trilogy now because the third one came out last year. I was supposed to go to a signing event for, it was called Wolf Hall. Wolf Hall is the story of King Henry VIII's lawyer, a man by the name of Thomas Cromwell, and various secretaries. Thomas Cromwell was sort of like a benevolent mobster. Worked for a man who really was like a godfather figure. Thomas Wolsey was the cardinal, and he basically ruled for King Henry. While King Henry partied and just didn't give a shit, and that all sort of worked out really well until King Henry wanted a divorce, and you know the Catherine of Aragon, the Anne Boleyn stuff, and whatnot. And it reads like epic fantasy. It's told in not second person. It's called a specific writing term where it's like third person limited, where everything is in present tense,
yeah.
even though it's in third person. It's
Third
incredibly hard.
third person limited is the cameras on the shoulder.
Uh huh.
So like you can't go inside the characters' heads. You are. It's. I think a good shorthand for it would be the documentary. Like you're not a character
Yeah,
in it.
that's it.
Like it's like you're a
Yes.
documenter. We yeah, the third person limited. Second person is like super hard to write in. By the way, it's like the hardest one
Yeah.
to
Well,
write in.
this is
Second person is it's really hard to write in. But go on.
yeah. This I've tried emulating the writing style of this woman, and it's a shame because she doesn't consider herself a novelist. She hates fiction, but she's a fantastic novelist. Her name's Hilary Mantel, and they right when Age of Sigmar came out, they adapted it into a 6-part miniseries on PBS Masterpiece. You know, Downton Abbey, stuff like that, with oh god, Damian Lewis. There we go. Damian Lewis was King Henry. Mark Rylance, he was the old guy in Ready Player One. I'm trying to think of things that might be useful references, like what movies nerds might have seen that he would be in, because he's very much like a real Shakespeare actor. And it
Yeah.
was 6 episodes. Yeah.
So was Samuel L. Jackson. He's a classic thespian, which is that gets buried in
Yeah.
the translation of his acting.
Yeah.
Um, very
But
much
anyway,
the difference, by the way, is chess actor versus face actor. If you really
yes.
want to simplify it, but
But the whole thing is that they're it felt almost like epic fantasy to me because they're playing out the story. This is historical. Like basically all of this happened, like minus a handful of conversations because it's 500 years ago. No one's going to write down private conversations between two people. But everything else, like the story beats and time skips, all that happened. They're filming in front of and inside some of the real locations because a lot of these, the castles that didn't burn in the fire and didn't get bombed, they're still there, and but the castles look 500 years older than they're supposed to be. So it's this wonderful sort of dichotomy where they're supposed to be playing out a contemporary story in front of stuff that is museums. And that gave me the idea to create, which was my first Age of Sigmar army, which was mixed order. It was like Grimdark, Tudor, Arthurian, plus a little bit of Stormcast, because Stormcast didn't quite really have a full army back then. And I've always been fascinated by the color palette of like Tudor and Renaissance era clothing, and I wanted to incorporate that into my elves. But that's why I had the idea. It's like if I painted them like Tolkien elves with normal skin tones, normal hair, and eye color, regardless of ethnicity, that would look great. But that would also look like a fantasy or even a historical army if you can't see their ears. And I didn't feel like that was appropriate for Age of Sigmar. So I wanted to even out the scales by giving them that. And it took me a while to get that skin tone right as well.
You
That
had
sort of
test
pale.
model on test model. Like I remember one of the first ones you
Yeah,
sent me.
I had like some because it was lockdown. I'm like, and I really wanted to get this absolutely right. I wanted
Well,
to like I don't
there's
care how
using
long it
lockdown
takes.
for a positive, by the way. There it is, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, my ethos during lockdown is this won't last forever. Whether events start up again this summer or this fall or next spring, it doesn't matter. I want to have that presentation where it's like this is my hobby, this is my thanks to my mentors, and I would like if my friends are even marginally entertained by this extravagant presentation I put on, all of that will have been worth it because that's just how I want to do things.
Well, you already have me
Uh,
tantalized at your display board at Adapticon or whatever that you're planning. You're like, think bigger. I'm
oh, yes,
like,
it will be big.
don't
Um,
tease. I don't want to see a. I don't want to see a
I
snapshot.
will
I
say
don't want
this:
to see anything.
there was a 4-panel thing I posted on one of Games Workshop's threads, like on Twitter. It's like, what are you working on? And like New Army New Year thing, and it was the 2 pieces of concept like art that I've paid for. Like with I showed last
Shit
time,
tons of Blood Bowl. That's what I've been working on. But go on.
the elf with truly high fantasy. There's a scar along one side of his face, like Thranduil from The Hobbit. But the night sky appeared like the endless cosmos. He looks like a
This,
bad guy from Bloodborne.
this is the one This is
Yes,
the one you
showed
commissioned.
last time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, one of the few.
At the
And then
time, it was like the one. I'm sorry.
yes, oh yes, no, we're still going along with this.
Yeah, yeah. Right on, man.
And then there's a concept again. My artist friend, like if he doesn't draw, he's not earning. So I threw him some money. It's like I have some sketches of a display board. Can you make like a color mock-up of it? And that's this. You can only see this much of the color mock-up, and it's like now I have to go build that. This was the easy part. Drawing it in Photoshop is the easy part. Now I have to build it. Do you know what a proxon is?
I do not. I do not.
A proxon is like a bandsaw, but it's like a hot wire cutter, but it has like a measuring sort of like cutting board on it. So you can line up levels to cut foam like one would use a bandsaw. So you can get perfectly equal cuts. Like if you want to make pillars or bricks or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if I need to make several hundred bricks, pillars, and like if you want to make architecture that is not organically shaped, that is how you get a lot of it very quickly. Because the thing about a hot wire cutter is it melts the plastic, I'm sorry, the foam. You're not always going to get perfectly symmetrical shapes. So you need something that helps you get there. So like I need to make all sorts of bricks, pillars, towers, arches. That's all you're going to get out of me. It's an elven sort of courtyard, garden, and castle retaining wall with towers and lights and foliage. It's gonna be
Have you had to like consult with the Trunzo? Like
um
like with Ed,
not necess.
Mr.
I
Trunzo
I
does
have
some
taken notes from his
fantastic,
boards.
some of the best boards I've ever seen.
I have consulted friend of the chat, Steve Wren. Steve Wren, who works for the Warhammer World event studio or events team. He's also like former Bad Dice and stuff like that. He made a high elf board back in the day. I was like asked a few questions. Trunzo is good to take notes from. I've seen his stuff, and I'm like, okay, he did that. He did that. Okay,
Oh, he had the infinity. He had an infinity mirror in one of his boards. Did you see that?
yes,
Just
yes, it did. It was the Skaven one.
I'm just like, and he's like, oh, it's just a children's toy. I'm like, it doesn't look like a children's toy. How did you get that to like work with this whole aesthetic?
Right,
That's
and he's going to bring it to Adepticon next year. So if I want to win, if I want to place at Adepticon, I have to compete against that.
like how the hell do you? I mean, that's one of the great challenges of our thing is like when you're doing some bashes and conversions. When you're pulling out, especially for display boards, how do you make it look like it belongs there? That's the like the $1,000,000 question. Like, how do you make it
Yeah.
look like it fits on your model? If you're doing a head swap on our regent here or whatever,
Right.
how?
It's thematic consistency. Just as a quick thing for boards, Woodland Scenics has a YouTube channel. I believe they had a YouTube channel since YouTube was a thing. So they have videos going back 12 to 14 years. All of them are useful. That's the thing about model railroading. Techniques that are decades old are probably still useful now. Maybe someone makes a tool for it better. That's about it. Um, but for me, it's all about if Lumineth are a combination of nostalgia, reinvention, and addition, so too should I follow those rules when looking to augment mine with kit bashing.
All right, that's fair. That's fair.
I say if you want it to apply to any army, not just Lumineth, you should think about the core themes of not only the army that you're basing your kit bash on, whatever like the core like lore themes are, like Sylvaneth, soulblight, war clans, etc. And then if you're doing your own theme, which builds upon that, try and stay on brand, your own brand, uh, because that always leads to, I think, better design choices in the end. Now, there's something to be said for, and we don't have the pictures, unfortunately, where you're just going crazy. I mean, but even then, that's its own thing. You
Well,
just want what's the most wild and out there.
well,
Yeah.
there's what's called experimental and or
Hmm.
stream of consciousness. You want to do some of that, by the way, when you're trying to like make great art. This is, um, as a writer, because that's my like primary creative mode. Like poetry for me is like in that sphere where I just like did it, and then just see where it takes me. And then like sometimes I get something in there that I like the most, and then I turn that into something more refined down the line. Or
Yeah.
music will do this for me as well, where like I get like hung up on like some wild scenario, or like I'm listening to a song and my brain starts to run away with me, and I'm like, oh, what if I made a story out of that like crazy thing that my brain just like went off the tracks on? And you got to do some of that too, especially in like a physical medium.
Oh yeah. And to use an example, like learning from the greats, the Lord of the Rings thing. They said it's like it shouldn't. When they decided to start making the movies, they said by the time we start shooting, there will be several hundred, if not over a thousand or two people working on this production, including actors. We're going to be on location. All of that costs money and time, and any indecision could just spiral the budget out of control and could derail the project. So what they decided to do was engage in something called previs, pre-visualization, where they rendered first in storyboards and then in just like a very simplistic CGI every shot in the movies before they started shooting. And so they could get a good idea of what camera angles they would use, like Peter Jackson and his concept artists. Um, and it also started to kick off what sets they would need, what would become part set, part miniature, part set, matte painting background, computer generated, and so forth. But they said a number one rule was, even though this gives us a general idea of where we want to go from here, don't be afraid to deviate from your own plan. In the sake of, like, I think this is going to, an end product might work a little better than what you imagine it might first start out as. Um, like, I didn't expect when I first started thinking about what I want to do for my ultimate elf army. It started with Lord of the Rings, but better, and evolved into what I have now, which is the Crimson Dawn, the knights the elves I've posted on Twitter and such. Like, those are two very different things, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is how OBR became OBR from wanting to make TK. Like, you
Yeah.
gotta, you take it to its fullest natural conclusion. Even if you start someplace grounded and real, like, just see where it takes you. Real quick, a couple things from chat. Leonard, uh, Lion Nerd, Lio Nerd, like, you have a capital thing in the middle there, but you're gonna have to tell me the pronunciation on this because names are important. But it's amazing how many inspiring people we have in the AOS community. Every time I see stuff on Twitter or on Reddit, I feel encouraged to do stuff. Um, yeah, I mean this. I kind of alluded to it before. I don't know if I made it explicit, but the Age of Sigmar community is quite simply a community unlike anything else. The first rung of my personal ladder might be tabletop RPGs, but the first rung of the community ladder is Age of Sigmar. I have spent my life around nerdery and gaming and competitive scenes, and I have never. My whole rantcast exists because I'm trying to decipher what makes this different. I don't have an answer. But it is different. It's the you know I can take
Yeah.
or leave the Dungeons and Dragons community. Like, there's some great people there, but the aggregate isn't something I can't find anywhere else. There's a camaraderie to my sports ball teams. I'm wearing like a Milwaukee Bucks baseball cap right now. Like, there's a camaraderie to that, but Age of Sigmar is different. I don't know what it is. I haven't figured it out. Maybe when I do figure it out, I ride off into the sunset and I quit making content, but I haven't yet. This community is different. It's great. It inspires me.
Well, I do my best.
I feel like a better person because I'm in this community. The people I have met, I have made more lifelong friends and it's been more than 1 year, but in 1 year of Age of Sigmar, I had more like lifelong friends than a whole lifetime of tabletop RPGs and college and high school. And like, I've got one friend from high school. I've got like about 5 friends left from college. Um, I've got. Do I have a single friend left over from all the MMOs I played that I only met in MMOs and is still a real friend I have now?
I'm gonna get more water while you talk about that.
I don't think so. Like, I could run the math, um, and there's just something about this community that it's different. It's powerful. I can't put my finger on it. Um, yeah, and then Kicker has proclaimed himself a pirate king. I second it. You can't self gloss, but I'd have called you the pirate king to begin with. So huzzah and cheers to it. Kicker / Travis, you are in fact the pirate king, the vampire king even. You've backed it up. I've seen your models. I've seen the conversions. I hope they end up on community. I hope they end up on the Warhammer community site. I think we. I think Warhammer community wants something concrete to sell from it, which is like a tragedy of it all. Because, like, are they selling OBR or are they selling this new army down the line? And that's why it's kind of garbage, but it
Uh,
deserves to be
if
shown.
if I may if I
Go
may
ahead.
offer a perspective on
Because
what
you've
ends
had
up
a
on.
Warhammer community army.
Thank
Yeah.
you. It's mostly about presentation. Like, I think the best advice I can give to people is take better photos of your models. it's something I need to work on, but it's generally what they like the most. If you subscribe to White Dwarf and you see the pictures of miniatures that are in White Dwarf, you'll see the skill. It's the skill, not the skill curve, but like the skill level is this. That's not the point of what they show. They want a little bit of everything, but they have to be. The pictures all have to be the same so they can be formatted like copy paste into their magazine. They don't really have I don't want to say patience. They don't have the time to correct in Photoshop all of these pictures of people's models to make them applicable for the magazine or the community website. I am of the belief that I was not in the running from the beginning for my Armies on Parade display because of how I photographed it. I don't have a DSLR camera. So if you, regardless of your painting ability, if you can take better pictures of your models, maybe get a little cleaner. Like, and cleaner is just like make sure there's no dust on them. Like your
No
edge highlighting is
background
yeah.
should be blanks too, right?
Right.
They
Yeah,
want
you need a white background and stuff like it, or in this some cases black backgrounds, but like no multicolored like textured mats or something like that. And it's after that, just keep posting. People see, like Games Workshop sees your stuff. They just don't interact with it. They interact with what like absolutely grabs them. Uh, like Kelly Freeborg with her Stormcast back in the day, or whether it's Oscar's stuff or Vince's stuff or my stuff. It's and all of us have vastly different painting styles and abilities. It's about having that presentation which is applicable to the website so they can market the product. It's ultimately about the presentation.
Yeah, they got to market the product.
Mm-hmm.
But they need a presentation that they can. Are my I'll talk about this later. Leonard, blah blah. We've cheers to your crown. You are the Vampirate King, as far as I'm concerned. You can't self gloss. This isn't a self gloss. I'd have called you it to begin with. So Travis, take that crown. The community is miles better than the Magic could ever hope to be. Um, I I come down heavy on the Magic the Gathering community sometimes. I don't mean to because that puts. I need a better colloquialism than it puts hair on your chest. I don't have one yet. I want to get one. But there is something about being a part of the Magic the Gathering community that just. You are reforged in fire. I was talking just today to my boy Kyle from the Pants Mafia, and check out the Pants Mafias. They've been doing their Pants to Glory series.
Yeah.
Like it's been fantastic. They're really Christian Ware takes a very Doom and Darkness style of taping their battle reports. So you're looking at like 10, 12-minute videos, and then like their personalities. It's like rerolling ones and Pants Mafia. Those are the bat reps you need to be watching. I can't praise like the Pants Mafia enough. Production value isn't as good as rerolling ones, but rerolling ones honed their craft and they earned that. What it is it's the camaraderie and watching friends play a game. That's what rerolling ones has. That's what other bat reps lack. And the camaraderie between the Pants Mafia playing their games together is bar none. It's if your first game at a tournament is against somebody in the Pants Mafia, you will be a lifer in the tournament scene because
With
they
the
are.
except with the except sorry, keep going.
No, if you play against Alex, Christian, or Kyle, and Tanya, they're sort of a subsidiary of the Pants Mafia. If you play against any of them, you're going to have a great game, and you're going to be here for life. What were you going to say?
With the exception of one event, I have played against Christian Weir every time I go to a Midwest event in round 5. It's always round 5, regardless of how I both of us have done. I played against him at Adepticon 2017, 2018, Midwest Meltdown that year. Again, round 5. Holy Wars. I think the only time we did not play was Adepticon 2019.
But
We broke the cycle, but everything else, including like Holy Wars and Midwest Meltdown, round 5.
that's not
And
a first game. This is not
I know,
counter to
I
my
know
point.
that.
My point was if the first game you play in a tournament is one of the Pants Mafia.
Yes.
Were these negative experiences against Christian Ware, or just the fact that you keep playing him?
No, they're incredible experiences. Um, now, do you know Pat Brynildson?
Brindleson, whatever. I'm
Okay.
familiar. I haven't played him yet specifically, but I know he's pretty lauded in our Midwest scene.
Yes. Yeah. Never mind then. When you were like, yeah, I've heard of him, then I'll tell the story for another time. But yes, Christian and our games are truly magical, and he's won every game except for the last one, where um, our tiger painted Dracolines met a giant horde of spiders and made the spiders disappear, and the game was over after that.
Oh, you mean his award-winning spider army that he won an award for painting at my tournament, the only tournament
Oh,
I've run to this day.
very nice,
Yeah,
very nice, Christian.
yeah.
Yeah, it was the same. Yeah, because we were at it was Holy Wars early 2019. Because I went to the very first Holy Wars because Age of Sigmar was still very new. This was early 2016, before the first General's Handbook. And again, I'm in New Jersey. Like the Northeast is truly its own sort of ecosystem in terms of how wargaming goes. And I was like, if I want to play events for this game, I really like Age of Sigmar. No one else wants to do it. I either play in 4-person events round robin in Brooklyn, which is already a 2-hour drive, and Steve Herner was good enough to like advertising this stuff. And I went to the very first Holy Wars. I met almost everybody. Like Christian Weir. I met Herner, Alex Gonzalez in his goblin costume.
With
Brad.
the hat.
Yes, the hat. Relian, and I played Andrea. I think Andrea was my first game. I think, and that was kind of like made me like one of us as far as the Midwest crew goes.
I've never understood why you're so well endeared to the Midwest crew, but you are, and this makes sense now.
Yeah, I
This
went
is a
to
story I haven't heard in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years.
ever,
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
Oh yeah, and I wanted to say something about Haywo, because I played Joe. Um, round no, I
Round
played
2 or
Pat
3.
Brynel. Round 2. It was round 2 because my parents watched me play Pat Brynildson, and he would not stop making my parents laugh. It was truly one of the most enjoyable experiences they ever had. As we went to Adepticon as a family that year, and then so round 2 I played Joe, and I really got to say, because my mother was watching while I was like making dinner for everybody, my mother came and was listening to the RantCast where you and Joe talking. It was like, I've heard one of those 2 people before, and I paused it and showed Joe. And now hold on, I got to pull up like what I said, where it's like, he said, no, that's the guy who knows actual game design and can do stats on the go in his head. I have to try my hardest to get on that level, or I can just roll hot with fulminators and kill his army, because that's what happened. He did a video afterward, like where the eponymous
His
great good
Adepticon recap where that's where
yes,
the good painter
good painters,
Stormcast man, yeah.
because well, which is funny because he played 2 Celestial Vindicator Stormcast players in a row. First was me. The second one was Les from Fate's Hammer.
Super beer guy. One because
Yes.
the one, so I'm guessing it was the second one was the guy who just kept buying beer like the
Mm-hmm.
whole time. Like he showed
It
up to
was
the
Les
table
from
with
Face Hammer. He has
he,
an award winning, like he's a GT winner. He has an award winning, like at that time, like especially if you want to compare our 2 Stormcast armies, he painted my exact color scheme, but crisper and better. It just didn't have bricks, which makes mine special. Joking, of course. But he called me the good painter, even though at the time he was the objectively much better painter.
if I may, it's because the standout quality from your game was how well painted your army was. The standout quality when if you understand, Joe, we've been friends for 18
Yes.
freaking years. The standout quality to playing the next guy was how he just like bought them both beer and like, oh no, dude, I trust you to like set up the table, and like walked away and bought beer, and like it changed how he like the whole like he
Yes.
wasn't
That's his
focusing on the
first impression.
Yeah, the first impression shifted to like guy who's like, oh no, dude, I played this like matchup 1,000 times. I'm gonna go buy us beer, and like so his whole
Yes.
like the
Um,
if he hadn't bought beer, you might not have become good painter Stormcast man. You might have been like other Stormcast
bullshit.
man or whatever,
Bullshit fulminators.
or bullshit
Because
Forminators man. Like yeah, like
yes.
who knows what the
Yes. And what happened is that he explained his thought process behind the entire scenario. This was back when it's like I wanted to become a better player, and like I just back then I did not think about the game as well as I think I do now. And he was like talking about the scenario, looking at the matchup, and it's like, oh, I just have to do this and kill his characters, and I win. So that didn't happen, and I just like he had the D&D army with the dwarves on the bears,
he was on
the
this
elves
mixed
on the
order.
two dragons.
It was on his
Yeah.
mixed order then.
Yeah, they were all like cyborg bears with dwarves on them. He had two elf princesses on the two dragons.
Yeah,
And he
like
was like, "This should work." And
his
then I just catapulted my fulminators into his dragons, rolled hot, and killed both of them. And he was like, "Oh no! Well, if I win the turn roll, I can kind of do this and do that." And I won the turn roll, and then just killed more of his army. But he managed to. He had Tenebrous Shard with Sword of Japan, but could not roll a 4-up. So Tenebrous Shard with Sword of Japan just kept sitting in the corner of his table the entire game. And I was clinging to life with only one character left, which was the Lord Relictor. And I was scoring points, and I won by like 2 or 3 points. But I was like, I didn't understand from my perspective how close I was to losing every turn until he explained it. Not, he wasn't speaking to me, he was doing his recap, where I was like, I fundamentally do not like comprehend the game as well as he does, and I should try and do better. And it wasn't until much later that we've actually met and became like friends. But one day at like some Midwest tournament, be it like what is it, Steel City Brawl or whatever, where it's like a non-convention sized GT, where I will probably be able to attend, and then we'll finally get our rematch, and it'll probably be LRL versus either Gutbusters or something, and we'll be on relatively more even footing. But I still think he'll probably win that game because
he sees the game really well. But you want to know, he's only beaten me once in Age of Sigmar.
Oh, how many times have you played a game? Once.
Thousands.
1 out of 1 is still 100. Oh, okay. I was about to say 1 out of 1 is still 100%.
No, he beat me once when I was playing his own Stormcast against him. He's never beaten me on death, and he's lost to his own Stormcast that I played like 4 times.
Oh,
there's some
okay.
trivia for you. Like,
yeah, people are starting to head off to bed in the chat.
Meth and Martin, it's been a treat. Taking off for the night, but can't wait to watch more live Meth now that I'm in Admissible's time zone. Ooh, so you moved or some such. Right on. Yeah, I usually stream around even when I'm not doing like my RantCast, I usually do about 7 p.m. Central to goes till question mark. Thank you for stopping by, Indigo Girls.
Yeah.
And again, thank you so much for that Twitch Prime sub earlier this evening. Leonard, damn, internet is so crappy. Yeah, that sucks. What I was saying is, you're all doing a great job at entertaining and inspiring people. Watching the RantCast is always great. I disagree, but thank you. It really inspires me to just think about AOS in really interesting ways. And Martin's army are one of my main inspirations in planning my LRL army. With so much amazing stuff, the lore, the models, and even the commissioned art, it doesn't fit the context of the talk now, but anyway. Yeah, I
think it does, because you finish your thought, because yeah.
No, I think I'm gonna go back to this thing I always harp on and I smash on and all the time. AOS for me is possibilities. It is hope. It is um, inspiration personified. Like there's a Magic take earlier on where Magic makes you jaded from Spawn of the King, and that's 100% true. I talked about the Pants Mafia kind of leading into this segue here. I played Kyle at a look at my hammer over there. I've got a hammer over there somewhere. It's like right there. I've got a hammer there that Brendan Melnick doesn't have. He's so salty about it. It makes it fun. My
That
first
trophy from an event.
my first tournament out in the wild was Gen Con, and I played Kyle from the Pants Mafia.
Oh,
And
that was the one that Haywo ran, right?
no, Haywo didn't run that one.
No.
Haywo and I ran one at a Anime Milwaukee.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
We both ran it together. He fronted it. He was the money person and the advertiser, and I was the organizer.
But anyway, you playing Pants Mafia.
Yeah, so I played Kyle the first game, and I had come off the back of competitive Soul Calibur, competitive Magic the Gathering, competitive Street Fighter, competitive Counter Strike, like competitive Quake, where most of the games I just described, you don't interact with the person you're kicking the ass of, and then the other ones is just the most snide, like fake nice, trying to get an angle on you. And I played against Kyle, and I walked up to the table, and he was just this gregarious, boisterous, all-around nice guy. And I have met nice humans in my life, and so on and so forth. And I need to point this out to point out how I've met nice humans. He seemed so nice, I didn't think it was real. I'm like, there is no way a human, not in terms of gaming, exists. In terms of a human on the planet exists that is this nice to you. A person trying to beat you in a game of where there's a prize where I can win a
Toy
fucking hammer.
Soldiers.
Yeah, no way. And this whole thing. So I got up there because I was on TGA forums and Facebook groups, and I'm like, oh yeah, they all just fake nice to get their 5 score, and and I'm just like, so he's being the fake nice to try to get my sports score, and that whole because my Magic the Gathering player came out in that moment. I'm like, no one's this nice, no way. And as the game went on, I'm like, he literally is the nicest human I have ever met. So much so, my entire reality reshaped itself ever since I've met him. I am a better person because I know Kyle from the Pants Mafia. Because I played a game of Warhammer against him. Because I played that game and I believed in humanity again. That's how nice he was.
That's a good experience.
I thought it was a fucking act, and it was 2 turns in, and I'm like, and I had you were talking about wanting to play Hero Hammer with vampires. I played a 3 vampire lord list in Midwest Meltdown, made by Bryce, who's also an absolute darling in our community and a fantastic hobbyist, and you can catch him on the Basement of Death.
Which Midwest Meltdown was this? Was this the second one?
I think this is 18.
Okay, because I went to the very first one, and just to show you, because how I'm part as a special, I drove 13 hours to go to Midwest Meltdown.
No,
Yeah.
I took a 3 dragon list and a 3 vampire dragon list. I had Neferata, 4 dry, and a regular Vlazda, and I underperformed for my standards, and I ended up running into Kyle in the last round, the round 5, where it makes or breaks my weekend going 3-2 or 2-3. And he's running the hottest dice I've ever seen or whatever it was. And I'm just and I've run into him. I ran into him at Adepticon. He's my Christian Ware. I just keep running into him in tournaments no matter what I'm doing or how well I'm doing. And it it diffuses the other shit, because I am a competitive human. I as a player. I play competitively. I want to win. If I line up against you in a game with a win condition, I want to win. It can make me an asshole. I can be a real shitty person sometimes. Like you play me in Blood Bowl when the dice aren't going my way and you're kind of shitting me on me on top of it. Like I can be a real salty asshole. Like I'm not proud of it. Um and then I just run into him and it's just like all that goes away and I play the game of Age of Sigmar the way it's meant to be played again. And like I've seen people cheer for you to get boxcars to charge them before, and I'm like, no, don't you dare cheer for me to get boxcars. Screw you. Like,
Yeah, it's like
no,
go ahead, kill my character with your catapult. You can do it.
no, you're being Magic the Gathering fake. Like, no, he really does want to see it, and I'm like, it blows my mind how
I cannot wait for our first game because you and I have not played a game yet, and
oh
that will eventually change.
I go Persona, right? Like I
I
go into my Persona.
don't know what that means.
You're gonna get heel meth. You're gonna get
What?
you're gonna get the Chris Jericho um
Full RPG, like you're gonna become a character, sort of thing.
yeah, you get that.
Okay.
Yeah, you get that.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so be prepared. No, I actually almost don't even like when we all get vaccinated and life comes back to normal somewhat. I just want to like grudge match people for like the next
Mhm.
several tournaments just to like play with my friends again that I haven't seen in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Like I just
It's something that I think people should start thinking about. Like as more vaccinations get out there and that number starts ticking up, and like my grandmother just got approved by the state. Like she got an email saying it's like we can make an appointment for her, and it's like the pharmacy right at the supermarket is giving them out, uh, stuff like that. It's coming sooner than we think, and which is why, regardless of what sort of like creatures my elves are writing, I want to paint them because the sooner they are painted, the sooner my stuff is ready for when we start playing again.
right on.
I'm not going to play with unpainted stuff. It's,
Yeah.
most events you can't. So that's my impetus to get ready.
Yeah. Are
Mhm.
you telling everyone to find your motivation and paint your armies right now because you don't know when the next tournament's going to pop and you just want to be ready?
I mean that's my ethos. It's it's I think almost worth talking about in its own show. I don't want us to take us like on another spiral thing
I
because
think we're on closeout mode now.
yeah. Because I totally get where people and I try and explain this to friends of mine. They are event driven. They are like family life, work life, or whatever. And I plan for 2 to 3 events a year. Like say someone like Tom, and they go hard for those 3 times a year. The rest of the time, I'm just at home, and this is my normal life. Um, and if they don't have that on their calendar to look forward to, they don't really have that sort of motivation. And I totally understand that.
It's the difference between internal motivation and external motivation. Some of us
Okay.
can internally motivate, and some of us need that external. Go on.
Yeah, so that's actually the whole thing. For me, I want there to be like all of this time I've had to myself. Like Goobertown put under one of his recent videos. It's like we are entering a really dark time in just modern stuff. And you know what? I hope I never have to do this again. But since I have to, let's hobby on. And he just put out a video where it's like a time lapse of 100 hours of him painting the same like 35 Chaos Warriors and Knights in front of his on his work table, and it's like that's a lot of time, but that's what we have, and I might as well. I am going more extravagant in my my personal hobby project because I am encouraged by the people I can't see right now, and it will lead to a cooler payoff down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Mhm.
perfect. Like we're in the dystopian future, and if I can go life lesson on folks for a minute, it's the people that pull you through in times like this, and think of the people you're going to see at the end of the tunnel, and
Mhm.
be inspired by the people you're inspired by. Connect to the people you have to like. Like I just think that the world's better when we're gaming together, and like we will get through this, and we will roll dice on a table again. I think I owe W Soren here from chat a grudge first, but you're my next grudge, bro. So just to play a game.
All right, I'll take it.
I just
I'll take yeah.
like I might have to check the tape. Maybe there's one more in there, but like Holy Havoc seems like a great time where like me and Haywo team up versus you and whoever you're pulling off the bench. Like, let's go.
Yeah, we'll say yeah. Oh yeah, it actually will be a struggle
Oh,
for
like,
me to try and
let
find
me-
a doubles
Let
partner.
me just like crack the knuckles and say Warhammer Weekly couldn't beat me and Joe. So what you got, dog?
We'll find out. I don't have hope for me, but depending on who my partner is, we might just make it.
bring in a ringer from like Detroit or something. Like see if Sean or
No, I'll bring New York City's best and brightest.
There you go. Ooh, I like that better. Like a little Midwest versus East, like where there's no
Oh, that's
rival.
definitely gonna be it. Yeah,
All right, man.
chuck it. Yeah. All right. Thank you for having me.
No, I was gonna say anything you want to put on blast. Anything you want to shout out. Any last soapbox moments?
Yeah. You can find all of my current hobby blog stuff on Instagram at one word, The Wandering Prince. No strange spellings there. Or you can just search my name. I tend to try and not use usernames anymore. That's like been my thing. So if you just search my name on like Google, that's what comes up. And on Twitter, I am CV_consigliere, like in The Godfather. Where you can find, I generally just talk more like I post all of my hobby stuff there too, but I'm also like in Midwest chats talking like, theory, art history, stuff and how it applies to like elves and Warhammer, and just generally being excited about stuff. But yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
I gotta say, man, your passion for LRL is I whatever I am, I can passionately a douchebag, and I can be passionately for rules, and I can be passionate. I care about passion. You are passionate about these elves, and that is, it's the thing I love the most. Like in this last year, it's just it's cool because you've got this like you've got this lineage of high elves and loving high elves, but then you just this passion that just transcends it all, and you embrace the change, but you're still finding that common ground, and I think that is it's quite simply beautiful, and so I respect
Thank
that.
you.
I respect that. Thank you
Can't
so
wait
much.
to get more of it to make it even better.
No, there, and I want to see your display board now. I might even be judging the display boards, and I'm going to be a discerning judge. I'm going to be an asshole judge if it's at Adepticon.
I'm sure you will.
I'm a mean guy. You don't know.
I'm sure you are.
Thanks for being on tonight, man. Chat gang, you know this. You're the show within the show. You're the reason we do this thing. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Drink your milk, pay your taxes, and maybe visit a blood bank in the future, for reasons unrelated to vampires. They have nothing to do with vampires. Good night, everyone.